temperature looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll with Linus.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Sliding down, SC off. Say again, SC off.
Yikes. You bet. Okay. We don't need any more of these.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to another NASA Spaceflight live stream. I'm Jack Beyer, commentator and all things rocket enjoyer, and you are joining us for the rollout of the SLS rocket before the Artemis-1 mission. We're doing it. We're rolling it out to the launch pad ahead of launch. But it's not just me today. I'm also joined by all of my awesome coworkers here at NSF, starting with Chris Gebhardt, who is out in the field. Chris, you there?
Oh, I am here, and it's rollout day. It's rollout day, everyone, and this is the second most exciting day aside from launch. So yes, it's here. Slightly delayed for weather, so thanks for definitely bearing with us. You know, when we have to delay for these types of weather things, it's not just because lightning is scary. It's because all the people who are out in the field need to be protected as well. So thanks for bearing with us on that slight delay here, but hopefully SLS will be out the door in a second.
Indeed. Sorry, my bad. You're not out in the field, but we do have people out in the field. In fact, we have Julia Bergeron out in the field. Julia, what's up?
Jack, I am super duper excited. This is the third time I've been out at the media site for rollout, and this time it's to the pad for launch, and I'm just super excited to be here with y'all.
It's an exciting night. I mean, like Chris said, it is the second best time. You know, second only to launch. So here we go. We're gonna see this massive thing get rolled out of this massive building and off to its launch site. Should be pretty sweet. Also joining us, we have Philip Sloss, the expert on literally everything SLS. Philip, how you doing tonight?
Good. We're standing by for first motion here.
Cannot wait, and super glad to have you joining us on the stream to provide all of the insane knowledge buried within your cranium. So thank you for being you and joining us tonight. We also out in the field, I don't think we expect to have him on comms, but we do have Stephen Marr out in the field who will be shooting some stuff and photos and videos and whatnot. So definitely appreciate Julia and Stephen for rolling out to the press site for this. And also, of course, joining me on commentary is Mr. Thomas Berghardt. Thomas, what's up?
Hey, Jack, from out here to the crawler way, actually, I'm looking at the back of a mobile launcher, which is carrying the Artemis-1 SLS vehicle, and we are potentially just a few minutes away of first motion for what we hope to be the last SLS rollout for Artemis-1. This should be the one that precedes that all-important test flight later this month. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, if all goes to plan, right, this will be the last SLS rollout for a long time, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but it makes sense because the next SLS mission isn't until, what, 2024? Or is it
2024 at present, yep.
All right, well, hopefully everything goes to plan and Artemis launches on its, during this window, let's say. But yeah, as usual, we're doing a Q&A type deal, an interactive thing here on NASASpaceflight. So if you have any questions, at NASASpaceflight in chat, and we'll see it pop up in some software that Michael wrote. Oh yeah, Michael is in the background as today's live stream director. So thank you to Michael as well. You can see this is the base of the crawler on top of the mobile launch platform, right? I mean, who wants to talk about what we're seeing right here? I mean, I immediately instinctively want to throw it to Philip. Sorry, Chris.
Go for it.
Well, we are looking at the base of the mobile launcher. So this is the platform part of it. And then you can see in the upper left, you can see the two solid rocket boosters. So they're a little bit obscured there. But down at the bottom, what we're looking at or what we're looking for is, you can see in the lower right, we have yellow pedestals, which is what the mobile launcher has been sitting on for the last, let's see, a couple months now, since they rolled back. I guess 6 weeks since they rolled back from the wet dress rehearsal, and we can kind of see a little daylight between that mobile launcher deck and the pedestals. So the mobile or the crawler transporter has at least lifted the mobile launcher up a little bit. And if you look in the lower left, we can see one of the crawler transporter trucks, and we're just kind of watching to see the treads start to move. So we're as I said at the top, very very succinctly, we're waiting to see first motion here.
And on that front,
And-
we can report from public affairs officers here at the press site that rollout is imminent.
It looks. I mean, it looks like the treads are moving. So is
I
that
think-
first motion?
Yeah, I kind of thought I saw that too, but
I wonder. Now
Are
I'm
they?
like curious what the explicit, very strict, I'm sure, very like, very defined NASA definition is like of first motion. Well, first motion is this, but
There
not
we go.
that. But this, it certainly looks like it's moving.
Okay, here we go.
It's moving. It's moving.
Yeah.
So we are
Okay.
rolling. So 9:56, 9:57, it appears, was
We're around
our
there.
first motion time here for
And-
SLS out the door.
Chris, I can give you confirmation that there were cheers on the other side of the road from us.
Yeah, awesome. That's what we like to hear.
That's heartwarming.
Oh,
You can
and we're going to
see-
hear the crawlers and oh my gosh, what vehicles they are. They are tremendous, but going to get to really see them going through their workouts here tonight.
Philip, were you about to say something?
if you look around the edges of the picture, you can see a lot of people there are sort of spotting to make sure there's everything clears okay. And in fact, you can see in the very upper right, it looks like there's still somebody up there on the yellow pedestals, just making sure that the mobile launcher, the pins will clear over the pedestal correctly. But you can see they're moving very slowly right now because the clearances are very tight where they are. Once they can get a little farther along, then they'll be able to open up a little bit and go a little faster.
I love the idea of
little
opening
faster.
up a crawler. Like, yeah, we're gonna pick it up from a quarter mile an hour to 3 miles an hour. Like, woo, we're really moving now. But with a rocket as big as SLS, it's that it kind of is really moving.
It's like a breakneck speed of 0.8 miles per hour.
I love it. Well, as you can see,
Yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
all smiles. I mean, we're all excited to see this rocket headed out to the launch pad and launch finally. Philip, I'm never going to forgive myself anytime I cut you off. Please, what were you going to say?
Oh no, I was just looking at I guess maybe we should just quickly talk about why we were why everything's about an hour late. The one thunderstorm cell in the state of Florida was moving towards the Kennedy Space Center, and so even though one of the reasons that they moved up the rollout from tomorrow night to tonight was looking at the long range weather forecasts, the atmosphere in Florida was supposed to be drier. I'm sure the people there on site will argue with me that it's dry, but it's the atmosphere is supposed to be drier, and it's supposed to get the weather pattern's supposed to get a little bit less stable beginning as we go farther into the week. And so because they were able to wrap up the work in the VAB ahead of their original plans, they were obviously looking at this thinking, well, if we can wrap up the work in the VAB, we could roll a day early. And so here we are. But of course, and so they planned on first motion at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and it looked great all day. Watching some of the NASA cameras that they had on, it looked uncommonly clear. And but then this storm popped up relatively late, and there was a little bit of lightning, and I think the entire Kennedy Space Center area eventually was under a phase 2 lightning warning, and so Thomas and Julia and Stephen all had to go back to their cars and everybody else. So, but that was lifted a little while ago, and so we're rolling.
Yeah, we had first motion at 9:57. I can appreciate that they didn't wait all the way till 10. Like if it's ready to go at 9:57, don't wait till 10. Send it out the door.
Right.
Exactly.
We're going to
Exactly.
get asked about the water trucks a lot,
Oh,
and you can
right
see
on
There they
cue.
go.
the water
Nice.
trucks
Nice
just started
cue.
spraying water. Sometimes I have good cues on these streams, sometimes not so much. But yeah, we're gonna get asked about the water trucks. Chris, would you like to enlighten us as to why there are these? They're iconic. Like when you think about if you're watching a movie and there's a shot of Kennedy Space Center and something on a crawler, you're gonna get a close-up shot of one of these trucks, probably in slow motion with like the treads slightly blurred out behind it. What do these iconic trucks do?
Yeah. So they are basically there to wet the top layer of Alabama river rock. That is what they use on the top of the crawlerway. And that rock cushions the crawler. It allows the wheels and the tracks to turn and minimizes those vibration damages and other things that can not so good when you're rolling a rocket like this out to the pad. And one of the ways that those rocks work in sort of cushioning the load as the crawler goes over it is they are pulverized into dust. And that pulverization process can be detrimental to workers' health for the people who are walking along the base of the crawler, monitoring its systems, guiding it for clearance, being spotters for the person who's actually driving it. So in order to help with health considerations for the workforce, they wet the crawlerway rocks ahead of time, so that way when they are pulverized, that dust does not go airborne and is not an inhalation concern for the workers. So if it's rained a lot before, they don't have to use the truck because nature did it for them.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
Well,
There's
you can
also a really cool piece of history I would like to I would like to say really quick.
go for it,
Um,
please.
Okay, so SLS is coming out of High Bay 3 in the Vehicle Assembly Building. That high bay is the high bay that the very last Apollo human lunar landing mission emerged from when Apollo 17 rolled out 50 years ago this year for its December flight to the moon. And the crawler transporter taking SLS out to the launch pad for its first mission and for launch tonight is crawler transporter 2, which is also the crawler which carried Atlantis to the pad on May 31st, 2011, the last time a vehicle left the VAB for launch. So I kind of like that connection.
You know what?
Super cool connection. Go ahead,
My
Julia.
heart is so happy with those geeky facts. It's just a lot of dots connected and makes it even more special.
Indeed.
Super neat. It's crazy that this is actually finally happening. I'm kind of at a loss for words, but that's okay. That's why you guys are here. Really quickly, thank you, Doug. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I sincerely apologize, but thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Zigstick, thank you for becoming a Capcom member. A bunch of new members actually. Thank you so much. We hope you enjoy all the member perks that you get. We have all kinds of stuff that we put up on the YouTube channel that's like exclusive to just members only. So thank you, Mark, also becoming a member. And we have Cindy becoming a member. Oh, and Nate Saunders. Wow, a lot of new members. Thank you so much, everybody. And Jake Riley, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Different levels have different perks. There's chat emoji. There's preview videos and photos and behind the scenes content that goes up on the YouTube channel. We did a members only stream with you guys at Johnson Space Center. Chris, that was super cool. That was like what, 2 or 3 weeks ago, going over all things Artemis.
Yeah, that was August. That was the first Friday in August, actually. Yeah, and yeah, it was a really great media day. We got to do we got to see a bunch of the simulators that they use for training. We got to see mission control and talk to the ascent and entry flight control teams who will be on console when SLS launches and when Orion comes back and lands. We got to talk to a couple astronauts who will hopefully fly this, which is also pretty cool. But the one thing that was absolutely the best for me was the virtual reality demonstration where we got to use some of the VR technology that they're using to train the Artemis astronauts for what it will be like on the surface of the moon. And you think sometimes like, oh, the pool, right? The big neutral buoyancy lab, that's how they can train for 1/6 gravity, and to an extent you really can, but the VR takes it to like a whole nother level of instantly being able to go like, whoa, I don't know if that's a shadow or a hole, because that's how intense the lighting changes are in the
Right.
moon, and it can really convey that to you. It was absolutely incredible. Yeah.
And that was a really, really fun run and gun stream. When you put on the VR helmets, with like you and Nick just like immediately started throwing moon rocks at each other, which was hilarious.
Yeah. You know what was the real fun part of that though, and the real learning part of the VR experience? It wasn't so much like because the VR can't simulate 1/6 gravity, but what it can simulate better than a pool can, because a pool has all that water with resistance, so you don't really get the sense of a vacuum in a pool. But as soon as you put on the virtual headset, when you move your arm with a moon, like with a shovel and a moon rock in the shovel, and you move your arm like you would on Earth with 1G, the moon rock just keeps flying right up out of the shuttle, right out of the shovel. Because there's no gravity, there's no air pressure, there's no air resistance, so it really teaches you how to move very carefully.
Yeah, I truly
And
wouldn't have expected that, even
yeah,
knowing the moon has limited gravity and whatnot. But yeah, that was all on a stream that we did for members, and just wanted to point that out. Thank you to everybody for becoming a member, and if you unlock access to that perk, check it out. All kinds of perks. Thank you so much. We've got Cat Herder Cam upgrading to flight engineer, which is insane. Thank you so much, Cat Herder Cam. We've got 784J2 becoming a launch director. Thank you so much. You get your name at the end of NASA Spaceflight Live episodes, plus all of the other perks. So thank you again to everybody becoming a member. And thank you to Blake for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. But yeah,
oh
let's
wow, nice.
get back into it as we're seeing this behemoth emerge from the vehicle assembly building. I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about. I'm seeing some really good questions sort of fly into the panel here. But the one that I want to start off with is one from Joshua. And Joshua is asking, how long is the journey from the vehicle assembly building to launch pad 39B for this rocket? And what time do we expect the rocket to reach the pad? What kind of process are we looking at here? First motion again was at
Yeah.
9:57,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. So, gosh, look at that.
I
What
know.
kind of timeline are we thinking here?
So from the VAB to pad B, it is about 8-ish hours. And I say ish because it's not a hard, fast, oh, this is exactly how long it takes. They have to come out of the VAB. They need to stop once they are fully out of the VAB, to swing the crew access arm around so that it is properly positioned for center of gravity. I know that sounds bizarre given this thing is 15 million pounds that's rolling on top of that crawler transporter. But it needs to move for center of gravity considerations for the rollout. And then along the way, if they need to stop because like something gets overheated or they need to regrease a bearing or a tread, that can kind of slow them down. But conversely, if they have no issues, they can get a pretty good steady pace of it's usually just under 1 mile per hour, just under 1.6 kilometers per hour is the when it's not around an obstacle, the breakneck speed that the crawler will go fully loaded with a vehicle. But they go much slower than that coming out of the VAB, and they go much slower than that as they climb the pad incline, because the incline actually from the crawlerway base up to the top of the pad is about a 5-degree grade that they have to climb, and the crawler has to keep the SLS perfectly level as it climbs that grade. So they do go slower. So all told, it's about 8-ish hours from first motion to hard down. And hard down is basically the NASA term for the entire weight of the mobile launcher is resting on the pedestals at the launch pad and is no longer being supported by the crawler.
Very cool. All right.
I
Well,
tried to go as quickly as I could with
Yeah.
a lot of information there.
No,
Did I miss
They-
anything, Philip? Yeah.
No, I mean, the only thing it really isn't adding, but it's they have essentially the same set and arrangement of pedestals at the pad that they do in the
Right.
VAB, and so that'll be, that's the first thing that they do is to get hard down, and then they will start hooking up all the services at the pad and get into launch preps.
excellent. I like launch preps because that means we're going to launch soon.
Indeed. well, less than 13 days, less than 12 and a half days, actually, to the opening of the window.
I'm gonna start sweating. Hang on.
These, and then another reason that another motivation for rolling early is because the weather can be pretty unpredictable and down there in Central Florida, and so this will give them an extra day for bad weather because obviously now the vehicle is going to be outside, and there's no major service structures at Pad B. It's a clean pad concept, and so for some of the work that they need to do, if we had another phase 2 lightning warning, the same rules apply to all the employees too. They all have to take shelter. So this gives them essentially another 24 hours to get all of the work that they need to get done ahead of the countdown, and then into the basically the last shift before launch, which is to gas the vehicle and go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, so exciting. So exciting. It's almost all the way out. I mean, it's maybe like halfway out. I don't know. We're seeing it happen. It's happening. .gif.
Yeah. I mean, so they had the downside of having to come back one extra time. So, going back to, they originally rolled out to do the wet dress rehearsal in April, and they weren't able to complete it then. And so they had to come back and then go back out in June. But this is all good experience because this is the first time that they're launching an SLS vehicle. And you can, at least my impression is that these operations are going a little bit more smoothly every time. And so, like, we were looking at the crawler. We were getting ready to go live for a 9 o'clock rollout, and they were ready to go before the lightning warning hit. It's like they were as opposed to some of the earlier times where they were calibrating things a little bit more. It really does seem like it seems like they've got that extra experience, even if it costs them a few months. But I mean, that's this whole test flight is a learning experience, and so even though it's taken a long time, I think they've learned a lot, and definitely fingers crossed when we get to the first launch attempt on the 29th.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. The more attempts you have at something, the more experienced you get with it, the smoother things I think you would expect to go.
Right, and that's why we're rolling a day early too, is because they're getting hands-on experience with just things like setting up platforms inside the vehicle and then breaking them down and taking them out. Putting on the this will be a little bit of a subtle thing, but one of the things that's kind of interesting to look at as once the vehicle kind of clears the edge of the VAB is, I mean, it really is configured for launch. So there are no ground support equipment doors on the SRBs or on any of the flight vehicle. These are all flight doors, and so really the vehicle, the SLS, is completely closed out for launch. The only area that they need to go into when they get out to the pad is to go inside Orion to do the late stows during the countdown. So we're looking at a vehicle that's basically looks the way it's ready to fly, and you can see it's ready to fly.
So exciting. So absolutely insanely exciting. It's ready. It's finally time to launch this thing. Let's see here. And just to sort of put a bow on all of that, like, by the time the shuttle program was in its heyday, or even probably when it was starting to wind down, I guess hydrogen issues aside, I imagine things were going much smoother than the first, couple of missions as well, where you do something enough times, you kind of get it down to a science. I don't know. Rocket science.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
Let's see here. Speaking of hydrogen, and the shuttle, having some fun hydrogen-related issues and scrubs in the latter part of its tenure, I guess. we have a related sort of question. Zachary is asking, if there happens to be a scrub on the first launch attempt, is there a highly likely chance it'll be ground support equipment related, specifically when it comes to handling liquid hydrogen too? So there was that, like, the ground umbilical connector plate or something like that. I forget when it was. I know it was later in the shuttle's era, and I know, Chris, you'll know the exact whole deal, and Philip, you too. But there were some issues with, hydrogen is a tiny little molecule, or atom, I guess. Molecule?
Mhm.
Atom.
Element, yeah.
Element, thank you. That's the word. And yeah, it likes to escape places. So there was, there's some issues. But what do we think in regards to this and the likelihood of some sort of hydrogen issue causing a scrub on the first launch attempt?
Yeah, so the one thing to caution is that no matter the maturity of a vehicle, surprises can always happen. Which is sort of what came up at the end of the shuttle program. What you're referencing there, Jack, was the ground umbilical carrier plate, or the GUCP, a nice little four-letter word that really hit home to a lot of people at the end of the shuttle program. But basically, it was just the fancy way of saying it. It was the device that connected to the shuttle's external fuel tank about 3/4 of the way up it, and it vented the gaseous hydrogen that was boiling off inside the liquid hydrogen tank safely away from the vehicle and out to the flare stack. But there were sensors all around that to monitor to make sure that it was not leaking gaseous hydrogen out into the ambient area around the vehicle, which could then be ignited when you lit the engines in the solid rockets. So that got them a few times at the end of the program. They were never really able to figure out exactly what it was, but that system is not necessarily the same one that's on SLS. So we're okay there, and SLS has been through that a few times. So it definitely looks like we're okay there right now. But we also did see hydrogen issues pop up in the wet dress rehearsals. But very crucially to that, I would say, and Philip, check my memory on this, while they did have leaks with the liquid hydrogen system during the first one that were actually bona fide leaks, the issues that they sort of ran into the second time that forced them into that out of configuration issue on the engines, which is why they weren't completely able to go down to 9 seconds. They got to 29 seconds instead, which was basically 6 of 1 for them for what they needed for the wet dress. But we've seen them getting better with it, right? We've seen the exercise of the first time of these new systems for SLS. We've seen them work through them. We've seen them get better. So, I mean, what are the odds of a liquid hydrogen issue during our launch campaign? I mean, they're never zero. But based on the progression we saw through wet dress, I'm not saying like, oh yeah, I'm totally expecting one at this point. As to what's the likelihood if there is a scrub on the first attempt that it would be GSE related, I actually really am of the opinion, and Philip, I'm fascinated to hear your answer on this too. There's so much heritage with this vehicle from the shuttle. And as we saw with wet dress, once they got the hydrogen into fast fill and then in stable replenish into the core stage, they just marched through the rest of that countdown like it was nobody's business. If they can get LH2 liquid hydrogen into fast fill in enough time that you still have time to launch in your window, I think there's a really, really good chance SLS gets off the ground in its first attempt.
Philip, what do you think?
I'm probably coming at it from a little bit of a different angle. I think the two issues that they had with hydrogen, the first one back in, well, actually they had a few, but I think I would kind of classify all of these as, again, in this sort of learning experience. And so one of the things that we used to always see in Chris B's stories during shuttle was a fun acronym called OMRS, which is operational maintenance, and I don't see the OMRS, but it's basically the maintenance manual for a vehicle. Well, this is the first time that they're working with this vehicle, and so they're, you go in with an idea about how much maintenance you need to do on things, and then you learn from working with it. So the issue that they had with hydrogen GSE was in April had to do with the tail service mast umbilical on the hydrogen side, and the vehicle's been stacked for quite a long time. The umbilicals had been connected for quite a long time, and this is a lot longer than they would normally do a launch campaign. And so, one of the things that they saw when they disconnected those fittings was that they checked the torque on them as an initial troubleshooting thing, and they saw, well, the torque wasn't up to the spec. And I think one of the things that they went back and heard from some shuttle veterans is that you need to check the torque on the nuts for some of those things more frequently, especially since some of the testing that they did is almost a year ago now. And then the issue that they had in June had to do with the quick disconnect on the vehicle side. But this is, basically it kind of reminds me of like the Indy cars, and those when the cars come into the pits and you see them put the fuel pump into the car, that seal has to be good, otherwise you see fuel spray out of it. And so that seal on the vehicle side had been in the vehicle for a couple of years. It was the original seal that they'd used during the green run. So this is going back, 2 years, and it, where you're connecting and disconnecting it. And so it had been used quite a bit. And I think one of the things that they learned there was, well, if we run into these types of situations again, we need to update our and somebody's helping me out with the acronym, operations and maintenance requirements specification. And then of course there was OMRS, and then you had the OMRSD, which was the document. And these are, in the shuttle days, they would have been these gigantic 3-ring binders. Now they're just thousands of pages of electronic documentation. But these are the types of refinements that you learn from hands-on experience. And so, this core stage obviously has gone through a lot more work and a lot more cycles than the next few will need to do. It went through that whole green run test campaign at Stennis Space Center in Mississippi, and I'll just throw in there one of the things. Even though they only got down to 29 seconds in the wet dress rehearsal, that sequence from that last half minute, which is controlled by the flight computers on the core stage, is predominantly about maintaining a launch ready condition with all of the complicated equipment in the core stage compared to the solid rocket. The solid rocket boosters, relatively speaking, are not quite as complicated. And so they've actually gotten into the plus count twice with the core stage in the green run. So we had the first green run in January 2021, where they only fired for a minute, but then they did the full flight duration firing in March of 2021. So one of the reasons that they were able to say that they'd satisfied all the objectives for the wet dress rehearsal here at Kennedy Space Center is because they'd gotten to the point where they handed off to the vehicle, and they understood why they had the cutoff when they had it. It's because the vehicle was not in a launch ready condition, but they'd already demonstrated that multiple times at Stennis, that if the engines are in their engine ready condition when you hand off to the vehicle, they've already demonstrated a couple of times that the vehicle will march right down through what's called the autonomous launch sequence, which begins at T-minus 30 seconds, and they'll march right down to ignition, fire the engines, and they'll be on their way. So I think that's obviously, as I tend to be long-winded, but I think is still going to be the sequence that we're going to be looking at really, really carefully. Obviously, the terminal countdown starts at T-minus 10 minutes, but we saw them execute that relatively smoothly, given the given that they were doing these pretty crazy workarounds that they were having to do, because basically they were the vehicle doesn't want to the launch sequencers don't want to continue when the vehicle's not ready to launch, and so they basically had to make sure that they covered the entire scope of all of the parameters that were going to be violations. They had to tell the sequencers to just ignore that for this one time, and so that last 10 minutes is going to be where we're going to be paying close attention, but then that last 30 seconds, I think, is going to be where we're going to be really paying very close attention and seeing whether we get down to ignition. So
It makes sense. I mean, the last 30 seconds of any launch are like the nail biter moments where, I mean, so many things. You're watching to see if anything critical goes wrong. You're biting your nails because you're about to see something insane happen, or something we've waited for many years to happen. But additionally, it'll be a little bit on top of that nail biting for SLS Launch 1, just to to see, okay, now we're in this part of the count, kind of like new territory.
Right. And so in terms of just getting past the point where they had the issue during the wet dress in June, once they reach stable replenish on the liquid hydrogen core stage side, then that's when they do this engine bleed. They start this engine bleed, which we talked about in the wet dress rehearsal broadcast, which is it's a shortened engine bleed for the SLS. The SLS has a different propulsion system configuration than shuttle. It's very similar, but this is one of the differences, which is that the liquid hydrogen they use to condition the hydrogen side of the 4 RS-25 engines is done in a shorter period of time, and all of that liquid hydrogen is actually dumped overboard. Now, it isn't just dumped out into the open air. It's routed out to the flame stack flare stack that Chris was talking about. So, but because they don't want to throw away, they're trying to be as efficient as possible. They've shortened that bleed time down, and so that bleed starts after they get to stable replenish on the liquid hydrogen tank for the core stage. And so that's when they initiated that bleed flow, is when they saw the leak at the quick disconnect. So they've replaced all the seals. They disconnected the umbilical. They replaced all the seals. They connected everything back up. They've done ambient temperature leak checks, and so that'll be the point where we'll get a verification that it's leak tight.
Kind of at a loss here because we have a $100 super chat from Russell Snodgrass. Russell, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, you are absolutely amazing. Let's see. I can't. I'm just like, wow. That it's not the first time you've done that either. So thank you so much. But they're asking a question, and so let's do our best to answer this. I'm still just kind of at a loss right now. They're saying, I've gotten so used to seeing BFRs roll down to the OLM in Boca Chica. How does the SLS compare in size and weight to Booster 7? Well, Super Heavy is 69 meters tall, but it would be taller if it was sitting on the SPMTs. So thank you, Alejandro, for pointing that out in our back channel. The weight is 250 tons. Again, we're talking about Super Heavy, Booster 7 specifically, but in general, really. So the whole thing is around 300 tons is what Alejandro is saying. 300 to 350 tons. Chris G, how does that compare to SLS? Talking while muted, maybe.
Yes, I was totally talking while muted. So in short, SLS is taller, wider, and heavier. By the numbers, so you said Super Heavy Booster 7 is 69 meters tall. The SLS stack stands 111.2 meters tall. The weight of a Super Heavy Booster 7 at its rollout, because it's completely empty of all of its propellants, is 250 tons-ish, maybe 300-ish there. SLS is 6.8 million kilograms, or 6,800 tons at liftoff. or at rollout right now. And SLS and the boosters are 9 meters in diameter. Booster 7 is 9 meters in diameter, and the SLS with core stage and twin solid rocket boosters is 16 meters in diameter, with each of the solid rocket boosters comprising 3.7 meters of that, each of them, and the core stage at 8.4 meters in diameter. So taller, heavier, wider is how that compares, and it goes twice the distance out to its launch pad that the super heavy boosters take from their production facilities to the orbital launch mount as well.
Did you say taller, wider, heavier?
Taller, wider, heavier. Yes.
It's like a off-brand Daft Punk song.
And the height is the tower, by the way.
Got it.
Of that, yes, because the tower rolls with SLS, so you have to take the height as the tower on that one.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you so much, Russell. Absolutely, thank you. Again, that's not the first time you've come through with some big super chat like that. So thank you so much. Absolutely want to express appreciation for that. Also, Admin Covenant, another common name we see around here, showing us lots of support. Thank you so much for gifting 20 Red Team memberships. That's awesome. That's a huge amount of support. And even cooler than that, or maybe equally cool, it allows those 20 people who otherwise might not have to experience the member program, which we think is really cool, and furthermore is a super important way that we're able to do things like roll out to Kennedy Space Center for a rollout of SLS. and
yeah,
yeah,
I just want to say I will never not appreciate your jokes.
Thank you. Sometimes I'm like, people in the chat probably hate me, but oh well. But yeah, we have multiple cameras, as you can see tonight. We've got a bunch of different things we're trying, and you better believe that for the actual launch itself of Artemis-1, we are going to we are pulling all of the stops out. There are no more stops, so beware. It's going to be awesome, and your support is absolutely integral to that. So thank you so much, Russell. Thank you to everybody. We've got a bunch of new members too. Vidor, I hope I'm not butchering your name, upgrading to Capcom, so you get Discord access at Capcom and above. Moldy Space gifting 10 Red Team memberships, a whole bunch of gifted memberships tonight. So thank you to everybody. Gary, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Let's see. And if you guys want to queue up some questions in chat, we've got a whole bunch of awesome questions coming in from our viewers. But while you take your pick of what we're going to tuck into next, knowledge-wise, I will run through and thank some of these people doing the super chats here, so they don't get too old and stale. We like fresh super chats here. Musical Wolves, thank you for the support. They say, will a static fire still be needed? I don't think they planned on doing like a flight readiness firing or anything like that, right?
No. SLS's flight readiness firing or static fire, two terms for the exact same thing, happened at the Stennis Space Center in Mississippi back in 2021.
Yeah, that's what the Green Run, or in this case, Green Runs, were for, right?
Yes, indeed. The shuttles did fire their engines. So each of them fired them once for acceptance testing out at the pad, because the only way you could actually test the shuttle orbiter's main propulsion system was to mate it to a tank and haul it out to the launch pad and fire its engines. So that's why they did it that way for the shuttle. And then Challenger had to do a second one because there was a leak the first time she did hers, and Discovery had to do a second one for recertification of the program after the Challenger accident. But other than that, there are no plans to ignite the RS-25 engines on these launch pads anymore, unless it is for a liftoff attempt.
Gotcha. Jeffrey, generous amount of support there. Thank you. They're saying, Chris, your excitement is infectious in a good way. I concur with that statement.
Good. I'm glad, because oh my God, look at it. And the crew access arm is about to pull back to its center of gravity, pull back position for the rest of the roll out to the pad, and just like, oh my gosh, guys, like it's under 12 and a half days to the opening launch attempt of Artemis-1. Like, come on.
Did you just Howard Dean and say "bia"?
Yes, I did, and thank you for that reference that I have not thought of in years. Oh my gosh.
You just went full Howard Dean.
I did, yes.
The excitement is palpable. And Thomas in our back channel reporting that they have turned on the strobes on the mobile launcher. So you can see it. You can see them flashing, which looks super cool.
For aircraft awareness, not that any aircraft is going to be allowed to get close to this thing, but
well, they're not now because of the strobes. So
also that, yes.
Spatial Discovery.
No. Chris,
go ahead,
there
Julie,
is
what's
the
up?
There is the helicopter flying around. Now let's
That's
keep
true.
in mind the security
That's true.
helicopter.
That is very true. The security helicopter, yes.
Security helicopter, good helicopter.
I think it's kind of funny that I'm seeing some of the NASA people on Twitter going like, "Don't come back here," as SLS leaves the VAB. Like everyone agrees, like we actually don't want to see you again. Like we only want to see Orion again.
It's like I mean, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine like if you're a parent and you have a kid that's going off to college, and it's like you're like, "Oh, I'm so sad you're leaving. Oh no!" And then the kid like gets in the car and drives away, and then you're just like, "Yes, we're free again." Except with rockets. Space Shuttle Discovery is asking which STS is the Roger Roll Atlantis from the intro. I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and look. Remind me on Discord. You're on Discord, right? Remind me on Discord. But thank you for the support. James Juries, thank you for the support. They're asking where the Jawas are. We have multiple people reporting that they cannot see the crawler without thinking Jawas.
I mean, not
accurate.
wrong.
Yeah, accurate. Thomas Conroy, thank you for the support. They say, does the mobile tower have lightning protection, or is it just at the pad?
It has some lightning arresters on it, like for the something went awry on the forecast here, but it doesn't have like the protection systems that the pad offers. No. So, and that's actually why we roll at night. Because weather is far more stable in Florida during the overnight hours and less chance of weird pop-up thunderstorms, which happen sometimes in Florida. So that's actually one of the primary reasons why the rolls usually take place at night.
Makes sense. Remy Turk, thanks for the support. Another comment. I mean, it's always fun seeing names that you like remember because they pop up so often. Remy is asking, I think that Florida thunderstorm just arrived here in the Netherlands. Hypersonic thunderstorm. That's hard to say. I can't say hypersonic thunderstorm 5 times fast.
Hypersonic thunderstorm.
Don't
can't.
Actually.
Dang.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. But hopefully the storm's not too bad for you there, Remy. Thank you for the support. Ninja Decimator, thank you for the support. Saying STS-1 had a bunch of scrubs, if I remember correctly. Any prediction if there will be any scrubs on the first launch? I mean, everyone's asking about that, and let's not think scrubby thoughts. Like I think Chris, you yourself said that this is a lot of heritage hardware here, a lot of known quantities, and even though it's a new vehicle, the likelihood that it goes off without a hitch on the first attempt is definitely non-zero.
Yeah, right. It's non-zero. I need to correct one thing. STS-1 did not have a bunch of scrubs. STS-1 had exactly one scrub on April 10th because one of the main computers malfunctioned, and they needed a couple days to fix it after they had fueled the vehicle. So STS-1 only had one.
There you go.
Yeah, so first off, like historically had to correct that because I'm a shuttle person, and you know that. But honestly, the amount of heritage hardware that's on this vehicle, I really do stand by my thing. If they don't have major issues with the GSE getting into fueling operations, weather permitting at 8:33, I think there's a really good shot of SLS getting off the ground on its first attempt. Definitely.
Very cool. So SLS is sort of parked for the moment, right? They're pausing before they retract that crew access arm, right? That's what we're waiting on next.
That is correct. Yep.
Right. And they just, I mean, they're basically going to retract it and lock it. It's going to be locked in its retract position. And they'll do this now when we get to the next launch, which will have a crew on board. Then that's something that will be part of that final terminal countdown sequence. But for this launch, at least by the time the normal timeline, that'll probably get pulled back maybe a day before the launch time. I think is maybe 30 hours. I think it said on the timeline, but it's not quite so time critical. So if they probably have some constraints in terms of they can't put some of the late load or the late stow experiments in too early, but I'm sure that that's one of those things that they'll want to get back and parked during the countdown early. So but as Chris said, it's in a much better structural position to be retracted and locked for the roll.
Makes sense. And then once they're at the pad, they'll extend it again.
Right.
We'll just leave it back on this one because there's no crew getting on board.
But there are
yeah,
late
they'll do
load
that all
things
the
that they
time.
need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be a standard thing. Now, having said that, of course, during the wet dress, they decided to just retract or to leave it extended during that, so it looked a little funny to have the crew access arm extended like it looks right now throughout the entire terminal count. We won't see that on any launch attempt. But yeah,
Got it.
they stopped to do this retract, and so hopefully that's relatively quickly here, and then that's then if I recall correctly, once they get straightened out on the crawlerway, then they can really put the pedal to the metal.
Is it actually a pedal or is it a lever? Do we know?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Now I want to talk to somebody who drives a crawler and determine if it's a pedal or a lever or a knob.
Yeah.
I feel like it has to be a pedal. A knob would be a travesty, but I digress. Holy cow. Some super huge support coming in from y'all. Thank you so much. It's a historic time. It's a historic day. We're seeing this thing roll out to the launch pad, and you guys are coming out with a huge amount of support. So thank you. Nicholas Stansbury with a very generous super chat there saying, can't wait to see an SLS rocket and a Starship on the pad down in the Cape in the near future. That is going to be crazy. And I think I can speak for literally everybody watching that I cannot wait until that happens, and I don't think any of us can wait till that happens. 2024 is going to be an amazing year for spaceflight. I'm just going to call it now. But thank you so much, Nicholas. We're going to take that money and turn it back into awesome coverage such as this, and even better, just you wait until the Artemis launch on the 29th. That's going to be awesome. The crew access arm is now moving. It is retracting like we just talked about, and you can see it retract there.
And follow its shadow on the VAB as well.
Oh, that's nifty. But yeah, as the access arm retracts, I just want to thank Andrew, who just did a super insane $100 super chat. So thank you, Andrew. Of the known problems with SLS, what do they fix? Also, like to viewer ratio, what we low on likes? Maybe people don't know where the like button is. But thank you, Andrew, so much for that insane support. Like I said, we're going to take this money and turn it back into awesome coverage for SLS and for everything that we do. I don't want to leak, no leaks here, but the things we're doing for Artemis-1 are extremely expensive, and yeah, so it's extremely appreciated, all of the support, because it's not cheap. It's not cheap. So thank you so much. Also, Blake Alexander with a $50 super chat. Thank you. The level of complexity looking at the SLS mobile tower versus the tower and C for SpaceX compelling you guys. Okay, they're contrasting the look of the mobile launcher with the look of the infrastructure at Starbase. I get it. It's it's two different approaches, but this is I think either approach is valid. The shadow looks so cool. But thank you again to everybody for the super awesome support. I absolutely cannot thank you enough. And yeah, not to beat the dead horse. Oh God, Chris B is going to fire me. But yeah, we're absolutely plowing that right back into the field and growing more awesome content for you guys. So thank you. Okay, as we watch the crew access arm retract, which once it's done retracting, once again, it'll be stowed, and then they'll start moving the SLS to the pad once again. But as we wait for all of that to happen, we do have some more awesome questions coming in. Let's see. Philip, Alex is asking, maybe I'm spoiled from tank watching, but how much hardware is ready for Artemis 2? Do we even know? Oh, I bet you know, Philip. Didn't you just see a bunch of Artemis 2 hardware?
Yes.
Or was it Artemis 3?
I saw core stage 2 and core stage 3, although it's a little bit in a more of a rudimentary form. So yeah, and I mean the solid rocket boosters are a 5-segment motors, and then they have the forward and the aft assemblies, and all of the booster segments are fully loaded and they're basically in storage, waiting to get called down to Florida. So they're in storage at Northrop Grumman's facility, Promontory, Utah facility. So this is, I want to say, 90 minutes. Well, maybe not quite. It's maybe somewhere between an hour and 2 hours north of Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I'd say that's about right.
Yeah, and so that's right. You were just there for the flight support booster 2 firing. So the core stage for Artemis 2, core stage 2, is actually just is in final assembly. So it's basically just in 2 pieces now. We'll set aside the engines for a moment. But the upper 4 fits, the core stage is 5 elements. So the upper 4 elements, which is forward skirt, liquid oxygen tank, inner tank, liquid hydrogen tank, have already been mated together, and they're basically finishing up functional testing of the engine section, and that will be mated. That will be a fully mated stage, probably kind of in the Halloween timeframe. And then the engines are expected to start to be installed around Thanksgiving, and then that stage is they're currently tracking to deliver the stage around St. Patrick's Day next year, and it'll just then it'll if they're ready, then they'll probably have to wait a little bit because the Orion that's kind of in this picture here. So again, I think I saw a question going by there. This is the crew access arm on the mobile launcher. So this is the walkway that the crew uses or anybody else uses to get access to the inside of the Orion spacecraft. And this Orion crew module has electronic components that will be used in the Artemis 2 Orion as well. So they need to get this spacecraft back after the 6-week Artemis-1 mission. And so that will probably be one of the main drivers in terms of the timing of Artemis 2 is when this flight launches, and then when they get it back. If we were to launch at the end of August, the Orion splashdown would be in mid-October, and so then it'll splash down off the coast of California, kind of near San Diego. And they'll safe it, and they'll transport it back to Kennedy, and they will go in and they'll go in and get those components out as expeditiously as they can, so that they can pick up with the Orion processing for Artemis 2. And that spacecraft is in its 2 major elements. So you've got the Artemis 2 crew module that is basically waiting for those components. The heat shield's ready to be attached. That has to wait until those components are installed. And then the service module is basically already integrated. And so really, once they get those components back here, hopefully hopefully in the October, maybe in that kind of Halloween timeframe again, they can really start to pick up with the Orion processing. And another thing, of course, that we've been sort of getting hints about now is that after Artemis 1 flies, we should see a crew announced for Artemis 2, a 4-person crew, relatively soon after that.
And they're not doing any like green runs or whatever with these resulting cores, right? It was only for the first one.
That's right. So yeah, it's one of the questions I was asking them was when I was down in New Orleans at the core stage plant was if you guys are really done in mid-March 2022 or 2023, I'm sorry, and the launch is not for another maybe year and change, do you ship it directly to Kennedy now, or where's the best place to store it for the time being? So now it's can't count your chickens before they're hatched. So they haven't finished the production for the core stage yet, but if they're done in the spring of next year, they'll be way ahead of schedule, and they have no green run. It'll go on the barge, and it will go straight to Florida whenever they need to do that. So yeah, it's a little different this time. And so, a big picture way of looking at this is Artemis-1 is really testing the full SLS Block 1 vehicle in its final state, whereas Artemis-2 is testing sort of their full up Orion. So the spacecraft on this flight is a fully functional uncrewed spacecraft, so it'll be able to do all of the navigation. It's going to be able to fly itself into this cislunar orbit called the distant retrograde orbit, but the next vehicle has the full life support equipment in it. It has the crew displays. It has all of the provisions for a crew to fly it, and so there's more work to do and more they're basically wrapping up development of that initial operating capability for Orion for Artemis 2. And this flight is good because there's no crew on board. That's the limiting constraint for an Orion flight. Orion is sized such that a 4-person crew can do a 21-day mission on its own. Whereas for this mission, this Orion, because it doesn't have to take oxygen supplies, food, or anything else, it could stay up even longer than the 42 days or approximately 6 weeks that it's going to fly.
And it's well, okay. It looks like the crew access arm has stopped.
Mm-hmm.
You can see somebody standing up there. That would be one heck of a place to be standing right now.
Right.
Somebody going up the stairs. Just give you a sense of scale of everything that we're looking at.
Right. Actually, they posted. Let me see if I can. They recently posted a couple of nice pictures taken from the White Room that we're looking at. That's the White Room at the end of the crew access arm. Looking into the crew module. Let me see if I can find a link for that.
Yeah, while you do that, really quick, we were thanking the members earlier, and I was thanking some of the super chatters and whatnot. Thank you again to everybody for the insane levels of support. It's so appreciated, and it's so key to letting us do what we do. Another thing that you can do to support us, like another leg on the stool, I guess, is grab some merch. And because it's a historic day and a historic rollout of SLS, and it's sort of going down the crawlerway, or I guess road, to the launch pad, we got Road to Artemis merch. It's a whole new design made by Pauline and Mark in our with our store team, and it looks absolutely awesome. Sorry if you can hear that helicopter that's flying over right now, but we've got shirts, we've got all kinds of stuff. We got a mug, we got like the mouse pad, all kinds of cool ways you can express your excitement. And look at the cool neon NASASpaceflight logo. You gotta love it.
I love the neon version of this. Yeah.
Yeah,
really cool.
I'm a big fan. But absolutely super cool design, and there's a metal print too that from one of Nathan's shots. Look at that. SLS on the pad, ready to go.
If that doesn't bring you the feels, I don't know what does. Like,
yeah, if it doesn't bring you the feels, there's something broken inside you, which, I mean, it happens, I guess.
And who doesn't want a big giant Artemis print on your wall and like the giant 80s retro sci-fi feel of our Road to Artemis here. Love it.
Yeah, the retro look is intentional. I see a lot of people in chat saying it looks very 80s. Yeah, that was the point. And we hope you enjoy it. And definitely, like I said, it's a special day, so we have some special merch. So check it out if you are so inclined. But thank you for even considering it. All right, let's do some more questions from the viewers. How about we were just talking about the Orion capsule a little bit. Does this one not have a fully functioning ECLSS system, environmental control and life support, or is it partial? Or what was I caught a snippet of something Philip was saying about that.
It's partial, yeah, in much the same way that SpaceX and Boeing did not fly full up ECLSS environmental control and life support systems on the Dragon and the Starliner for their uncrewed demo flights. There are just some things. I know this might sound counterintuitive when you're talking about a life support system, but from the very first days of flying, we have so much experience with some systems that on uncrewed test flights, you just don't need to put the full thing on there because we know how it works. We know it's going to work. It's not a matter of, oh my gosh, will this new thing go? We have life support systems functioning 24/7, 366 on board the International Space Station. So in the grand scheme of things, that's not something anyone should be worried about. It's not like we're going to get to Artemis 2 and all of a sudden the thermostat doesn't work. And watch, I've said that, so now it won't. But it's not like that in that regard. It's sort of like when you're building a house, right? Your primary things are going to be like, will it stay standing on its own in certain types of conditions? And you're more worried about all of those things, not will the air conditioning system work?
Yeah, that
'Cause
makes sense.
you know it's going to work. Yeah.
Philip, what is this photo that you posted that we're showing on air now? Like, is this like some dummies in the capsule for
Right.
diagnostic purposes?
Right. I think, what do they call them? Anthropomorphic test devices.
There we go.
And
They're
they're
not
used
dummies. They're very
for-
smart, right?
Right. So yeah, these are two of the. I posted another question, but these are a couple of other images. So you can see actually in the upper left, you can see another device which has been fully suited and is sitting in one of the sort of commander and pilot positions to the left there. And then to the right, you have two, I think these are head and torso devices. And these would be, this is kind of the stadium seating kind of thing that they have in the crew module. It looks a little bit more sparse than it will for Artemis-2. So you can see some of this open grid area to the left of the heads of these dummies, which are it's part of the backbone assembly. It's part of the crew module structure. For the flight, they'll have floor panels, and actually kind of nearest to the camera would be where the all important toilet compartment will be. So that's one of the other things that they don't have to qualify until the next flight. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's but yeah, this is looking through the hatch into the this would be kind of to the right hand side of the so to the left you have, this is where the windows are. And so the left would be looking to the south on the launch pad. The hatch is facing to the east, and so yeah, this is one of those pictures. And yeah, this whole area will be much more. We'll have a lot more equipment installed in it. So that's a shot of that more fully clothed anthropomorphic test device. And that's in one of the pilot positions, so to speak. And you can see above. You can see that above that'll be where the displays will be, and you can sort of see behind the helmet there. You can see those white things with the black tape, or they're probably more like Velcro. Those will get removed before, but those are the windows. Those are the windows that they'll look out of, that the crew will look out. These guys won't, of course, but yeah, that's one of them. And these devices they have dosimeters and all sorts of radiation measuring equipment on them they're trying to characterize. And this spacecraft is going to the moon, and in fact is going to be, I think it goes, and I don't have it in kilometers. I want to say, or maybe I do, but I mean, this is actually going to go farther away from the moon than Apollo did. It actually maybe counterintuitively takes less energy to go into a higher orbit from Earth around the moon than it does to go to like a low lunar orbit. And so because of that, this is a very large large radius, large diameter or orbit. And so it's tens of thousands of kilometers too, beyond the moon. So but this is all, we're going outside the radiation field around the Earth, and so you lose all of that protection from cosmic rays and radiation. And so they'll get, I if I recall correctly, they were saying that the typical radiation dose you'll get from one of these 3-week missions is about the same as you would accumulate during a 6-month stay on the ISS. So
Oh wow.
so it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a you get a little bit more radiation exposure when you leave Earth orbit, especially low Earth orbit.
It's like I mean it sounds like, oh no, spooky, but I mean we can mitigate for that, right? And it's, I don't know,
Yes.
radiation. It's always like, it's
So if
really
you had
you get radiation from eating a banana, you get radiation from dental X-ray or flying across the country in an international flight. Like the higher you fly in a plane, the more radiation you get because less atmosphere to look at the water. So yeah, but it's yes, more radiation or the same amount as a 6-month stay on the ISS, but even though that's only in 3 weeks, I mean, they're going beyond the moon, right? I think it's kind of worth it.
it'll be in an orbit. At least these are kind of boutique cislunar orbits. I almost would call them. But in
Artisanally
terms of
handcrafted, no GMO.
they're it's a lot different than Apollo, and so this is one of these. I would almost call it a cislunar orbit. But in terms of from the perspective of the moon, it will be in this retrograde orbit around. It'll look like it's orbiting the moon from that frame of reference, and but it's a much higher orbit than we saw for Apollo, for instance.
Got it. And we can see that they're throwing some spotlights on the vehicle stack there. Always cool to see them doing that and like moving around these giant beams of light to illuminate the thing. You can see that right there.
Yeah, I think they did that in June.
Is it moving again? I can't quite tell.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
I'm just like looking at the treads. Yeah, it looks like it's moving again, and I guess that would make sense given the water truck doing its thing. Well, that whole anthropomorphized, I forget what the whole phrase was. That question was asked by John, and John, we just answered your question, so there you go. Good question. There we go. You can see it moving now, slowly and steadily. Christian is asking if there's a scrub, which we don't think there's gonna be. We don't think scrubby thoughts, everybody. I get the natural human urge to ask all of these questions, but don't think scrubby thoughts. Do not listen to TLC, or at least that one song. Let's see. So Christian is asking if there is a scrub, when do they need to roll back because of the flight termination system? What do we kind of want to talk about? A little bit of what all of that is. There's a fixed shelf life on the flight termination system as is, like after they test it in the VAB. So after a certain amount of time, they're going to have to roll it back. What does all this look like? Perhaps I should ask Chris and give Philip a break. Chris, you there?
Well, I can take some of this.
Do it. Go. By all means.
So I guess the bottom line is that they worked out an agreement with the Eastern Test Range because it's you can alternately call it a flight termination system, or I think they probably prefer to call it a flight safety system, but it is flight termination system is what it's for in a if you had a bad day. But in terms of requirements for launch, they extended the duration of time that the system is qualified to be used by 5 days. And what that allows them to do is that should cover this entire launch opportunity, which officially begins on August 23rd and ends on September 6th. So they'll have that entire time from August 29th, from that first launch attempt that they're targeting for the 29th, they should have the ability to depending on what the issues are. But let's say it's just they just have bad weather, they would be able to make 2 more tanking attempts, and they can strategically place those anywhere between the days of September 2nd and September 6th. So, and then after September 6th, they can't launch again for another 2 weeks. So if by any chance they haven't flown by then yes, they would have to come back to the VAB. And these requirements have been, we've gotten more info in the last maybe couple of weeks that has clarified things a little bit more. So apparently the extension, the 5-day extension, gives them 25 days from when they finished this test and checkout of the flight termination system in its flight configuration. And that test or that marker was on August 12th. And so that gives them 25 days from August 12th, which basically goes right to September 6th if they need it. It gives them the opportunity, I believe, to make an attempt on September 6th, and that's the last day of this launch period. We're calling launch period 25. And so that's, at least that gives them the full launch opportunity to take advantage of if they need to for whatever reason. But as you were saying, Jack, there's nothing that says that they're going to scrub on the first attempt. We just have to go into it. Hopefully everything lines up. They tank the vehicle and they're ready to go. And so we'll see about that. Now, in terms of the requirements, one of the other interesting things that I found out in the last week is there's actually 2 requirements. So there's a requirement that says you can't perform this test to sort of certify the flight termination system. It can begin no earlier than X number of days before the first attempt. And then this duration that we'd always been talking about is the second one, which is after you finish that test, then you have to launch no later than X number of days afterwards. So even if they had been able to extend it for several more days, they had to wait until a certain period of time before they could do this test. It's possible that they were ready to do this test all the way back at the end of July, but the problem is then once you start that clock, you only have 20 days under the previous agreement, and they just within the last week extended it to 25. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but the good news is that they will be able to take full advantage of this launch period once they get set up and get set up for that first launch attempt on the 29th.
Very cool. I see people in chat making let's say re-lyricking TLC songs with rocket related. I'm loving this. Way to go, chat. But yeah, don't think scrubby thoughts. Good answer there, Philip. Thank you. Let's see.
Yeah, they're definitely moving now. You can see that the sort of the aspect has changed a little bit as they have to turn. The crawlerway has 2 forks for the main crawlerway to go into High Bay 3, which is where this vehicle came out of, and then you have High Bay 1 on the left here with the doors mostly closed. And shuttle used to use both of those, but you have to make a little bit of a turn here to it's kind of like an on ramp for the crawlerway from High Bay 3.
Just a much slower on ramp than what you might be used to.
Yes. Generally don't have to yield because they're not going to want to have 2 of them out at the same time, although they did do that once. There's that famous picture of the 2 shuttles parked outside the doors here.
Yeah, Atlantis and Columbia. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that was the year of the hydrogen leaks. Hydrogen.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Right. It wasn't because they wanted to. They generally speaking, you don't want to necessarily have a big a big traffic jam of
Yeah.
shuttles outside the VAB.
Yeah, because that one was interesting because like it was like they had just hauled Columbia back from the pad for the issues, but Discovery was still in High Bay 3, and Atlantis needed to go into High Bay 1, but Columbia needed to go into High Bay 1, but Atlantis was in High Bay 1, so Atlantis and Columbia had to switch places with one another. And they had to send Atlantis out to the pad, and so they had to like temporarily park Columbia outside High Bay 3 because it's literally the only point on the crawlerway where they could pass each other.
That's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. I love a little bit of shuttle trivia and history. But for a second here, can we talk about that insanely awesome shadow on the vehicle assembly building from the vehicle itself?
Yeah, this is one of those treats as they have the vehicle all lit up and you can kind of pick which one you want. To look at the actual vehicle or the shadow that it's leaving as it creeps its way out to the pad. Yeah, it's just it's cool. I mean, I love it. It's the shadow is a different kind of emotion for me as you look at all of this and you try to take in exactly what is happening. I mean, it's kind of like, like it's the Apollo program in the height and the power, and it's the shuttle and its configuration and its heritage, and in that way the shadow really speaks to me, like the ghosts of the past looking onward at it.
Ghost of Future Past.
Ghost of future past, exactly. With fits, and I think that fits with our merchandise too.
It does.
With the history of it leading to Artemis, yeah.
Let's see here. Giant Rat is asking, what did the snail say when riding the crawler? Wee!
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. That's not a question, but I'll allow it just this one time. We're getting a lot of crawler questions because hey, the crawler's the thing doing all of the work right now. So I'm gonna put you guys on spot for some crawler answers. How about?
Oh, I've been waiting for these. Good.
ZTGB is asking, how many gallons of gas does the crawler use to get out to the pad and back? Well, let me just really quickly, we might want to limit this to out to the pad, and then like double it. And because it doesn't come all the way back, right? It just kind of goes nearby in parts.
Oh, good point, Jack. Yeah. I want to hit that first, I want to hit that second. 42 feet to the gallon is what it gets. So, 42 feet to the gallon, and it's 4.2 miles to pad B. So there you go, math friends. You may calculate. But yeah, it's a lot. It is not a fuel efficient vehicle, and it is not meant to be a fuel efficient vehicle. It's meant to be really, really good at taking the heaviest payloads possible, very long distances, safely and perfectly level. And for that reason, it's not fuel efficient.
Colton in chat says, "Wow, I thought my car had bad gas mileage."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but to give you an idea, right? Each crawler has two 2,050 kilowatt diesel engines that are driving 4 1,000 kilowatt generators for the traction. And each of them also, in addition to that, has two 794-foot watt engines that drive themselves two 750 kilowatt generators to power the entire system, the jacking system, the steering system, the lighting system, the ventilation system, the leveling system. And all of that is moving 16 tracks of motors with 57 shoes per track. So, yeah. It's not a fuel efficient vehicle. It's just designed to get spaceships miles to their launch pads, and it does
Yeah, I
that
mean,
very well. Yeah.
it doesn't need to be fuel efficient. It just needs to do its job correctly and not tip over or drop a insanely expensive, massive rocket.
Yeah, and they themselves too. It's very impressive. They have since the day they were created. They have both held the record. They are the largest self-propelled and self-powered land vehicles in the world. There are two other vehicles or three other vehicles that are bigger than them, but they are not self-powered. So they are the largest self-powered vehicles in the world. They each weigh 2,700 tons, or about 6 million pounds. And this one, Crawler Transporter 2, is capable of carrying 18 million pounds out to the launch pad, perfectly level.
That's madness.
And they're
Wow.
so big, they were built right there at the Kennedy Space Center on the Crawlerway. And they literally cannot leave the Kennedy Space Center.
They were built on the crawlerway?
They were built on the Crawlerway, yeah. So the Crawlerway kind of wraps around the vehicle assembly building to get to the two high bays that are on the back. And on that wraparound portion, there's a little yard area, like two little pull-offs where they can go and be parked for maintenance and stuff like that outside. And that is where they were built. And they can never leave this road.
I'm filled with strange emotions for for
And they
brainless mechanical things, but wow, that's wow.
But they have names too.
Go on. Which crawler is this? We do have a question about that. Was one of my next crawler questions.
Or go for it. I don't want to take the question away from somebody else. Yeah.
No, like it's the question I saw like fly by was literally, what is this crawler's nickname? I can't even. I'm not even sure who asked it. I'm sorry if I can't find your name right now.
Yeah.
But which one is this?
So I can find no documentation as to which name is applied to the individual one, but they are called Hans and Franz, based on the Saturday Night Live Dana Carvey sketch, because they are here to pump you up.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Like a small portion of our audience will even get that. I bet Adrian
Yes,
does not
exactly.
get that. Sorry,
And so
Adrian.
many of our audience were probably not alive then. So yes. All are
Bomb
welcome
you
here, and we
up.
love
Yeah,
it.
it's amazing. Let's see here. Crawler questions galore. Well, thank you. That was.
Ask away.
I think
Yeah.
you answered a lot of them. Let's see here. Oh, and a lot of people in chat are saying it's 528 gallons to make people. If you don't want to do the math, 528 gallons. That's a lot of
Per
gallons.
what?
For it to roll to the to 39B.
Well, it's 40. Well, it's 42 feet to the gallon. So that's it, really? Oh, well, okay. I'm not a math person. Whatever.
I am not a math person. I'm not going to betray my terribleness at math by even trying to do this on air. But I'm just going to take chat's word for it.
Yeah. No, that's right. Sorry, the numbers just didn't seem right in my head, but that's right. Yeah.
Here's a question for those out in the field. If somebody wants to jump on it, Mr. Vipitz is asking, how populated is the press site today? As in, is there greater excitement outside of NSF hardliners? Are we hardliners? That's that's a weird way to.
Oh.
Julia, what's the atmosphere like on the ground at KSC right now?
Well, let's see. If you want to quantify it, there are less people here than the first rollout, media-wise and audience-wise, shall we say. So the people who are here on KSC car passes that are a part of the program with their families. So there's less than the first, but probably more than the second rollout. Definitely more media than the second rollout. Not as much as I would expect, though. But keep in mind, this did move up a couple days, so not everybody could make plans to come a little bit sooner. As far as excitement, I have two astronauts within my point of view right now, and they are very excited. I'd say there is definitely a celebratory air tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you said earlier, was that you that said that when there was first motion, you heard cheering?
I heard cheering, and I was at the press site, and I heard cheering from the base at the VAB.
I know we're media, and we're supposed to be a little bit more composed, if you will. But I gotta ask, and it's totally okay if you did. Did you cheer?
I did. I woohooed.
Nice. That's a solid cheer.
Nice.
Of all the cheers, a woohoo. That's a standard go-to.
And you know what I caught while I was on my way over to the media bullpen here, closer to the road?
What'd you catch?
I caught an astronaut baby in, like flying wee in Dad's arms with the rocket in the background. So that's something I can share in the morning. But
Wait, like you caught a photo of it. You didn't like catch the baby as it was errantly thrown.
I caught the photo of it.
Okay.
So,
For a
and I got to
second
meet
there,
the parents. So
I was like, "You're a hero."
I'm a hero. No, I did not catch a baby, but I did catch a photo of a baby, and there are families out here picnicking and enjoying the evening.
Yeah, and so many people have spent good chunks of their professional lives working on this vehicle and getting it ready for its launch, and here we are, finally rolling out to the launch pad ahead of launch. Absolutely wonderful to see.
And I love the workforce cheering too, because if you go back to like some early space shuttle launches, especially like STS-26, the return to flight after Challenger, you can hear the workforce at liftoff cheering and screaming in excitement and passion. And I there's a part of me that really hopes we'd get that again with SLS, and that launch. But good to hear, Julia, that they were cheering there at the base of the VAB.
Always good to get, some ground truth, as Das would say. Let's see.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
So speaking of launch, Zach is asking what is left to be completed before launch has to occur. Well, first off, the crawler has to roll the darn thing to 39B, right? And set it down. That's also probably pretty important. And then roll away so it doesn't get roasted by the rocket itself when it does launch. But what else needs to happen?
Well,
Philip? Chris?
I wanted to put a bookmark in something too. Did you guys? I know we were talking about the crawler, and how the crawler doesn't just come all the way back over to the VAB after it drops the vehicle off at the pad. Did you guys cover where it stops? And
no, please
just
go
put
ahead.
a bookmark in that. Well, let me answer the question first, which is what they'll do is they'll hook up they'll hook up the electrical equipment and the fluid systems, and they'll basically connect it to get it ready to fuel the vehicle, and then they will validate those connections. So they'll the vehicle will be plugged in at the pad. The launch team is in the launch control center. They'll power the vehicle up. They'll make sure everything still looks good, and they'll validate all of those connections. They call that pad validations. That should take a couple of days. Then they will service the hydraulics on the solid rocket boosters. There are each booster has 2 redundant hydraulic power units, and they use hydrazine to power the turbines. And so those 2 sets of 2, so all 4 need to be fueled, and hydrazine is very toxic. And so when they do that operation, you have people in self-contained suits. And the pad area is cleared, and so that operation will probably take a couple of days. And they have one special set of engineering tests that they need to do on Orion, and I think they may have 1 or 2 ordnance hookups that they can do at the pad on Orion, but SLS is completely configured. But aside from that, really, aside from the pad validations, the SRB hydraulic hydrazine fueling, and the engineering tests, really at that point, once they've got all that completed, they should be ready to get into countdown preparations. And so, we'll just have to see how the weather goes in terms of how quickly they do it. But I think somebody was asking, well, since they're going out early, could they launch early? Well, the Eastern Range is really busy now, and so NASA had already reserved the 29th, and so I don't think they could come back and ask for a date earlier than that at this point.
I don't think they'd want to either, right? I mean, just take the extra day that you got by moving the rollout up, and
Right.
just
Yeah.
use that as contingency. It's your first time. Don't push it, right? Like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
Philip, did you talk about the hold downs on the solid rockets and how those have to come out?
No, but those are. I don't think those are. That's not a hugely time consuming operation. But yeah, in contrast to the shuttle, the hold down. You have each booster has four. The aft skirts have four locations on them where they are put down um, on hold down bolts, and then they put nuts to tighten those down on each of those four hold down points. For the rollout for this vehicle, they actually do have nuts down on the hold down posts, but like Chris was mentioning, those will be removed. For shuttle, that was a pyrotechnically activated system at SRB ignition. They put explosive charges on each end of the nut, and they would fire those to split the nut at essentially right after the SRB ignition command went to the boosters, because you don't want to force the boosters to rip the vehicle away from the pad. But if you do that, they will try and do it. So but yeah, they do have those nuts in there for rollout, because there's a little bit there is some motion that goes on. The river rock is not perfectly flat, so there's a little bit of bumpiness to the roll, and so yeah, that will be something that they will take out. I don't know where that is on the timeline, but it isn't something that should take too long to do.
I'm looking. I don't know if I can find it. I'm being really bad with the questions tonight, but I did see a question fly by about how does it not fall over? Like you said, the river rock's not the most even. It's not completely
Well,
flat and even. How
we
does it not
can't
just
really
tip over?
we can't really well the main reason is because the solid rocket boosters are fully fueled at this point, and the majority, I mean, not even the majority, almost the entire weight of the vehicle is in the solid rocket boosters at this point. I'm not sure exactly how much they weigh, but I mean, it's a huge fraction of the weight of the vehicle right now. So just having 6 million pounds, it would be hard to move around. But there is, and it's a little bit difficult to see here, but you can kind of see the umbilicals, the umbilical arms that are extending from the mobile launcher here on the right to the vehicle on the left. And there's one of them is called a vehicle stabilizer system, and it's basically just a mechanical attachment to the top of the core stage, and that is a umbilical arm that will be separated. It's one of the T0 umbilical arms that will be separated. I think all of the ones that you can see here, and they're basically kind of in the top half of the vehicle, with the exception of the crew access arm, will all come back. Will all be retracted, basically at liftoff. And then there's a couple of other ones that are connected to the boosters at the bottom. But the vehicle stabilizer is there for wind, so the vehicle could take a little bit of wind loads, and they could roll out in that, and that will keep the vehicle kind of from rocking back and forth too much. And they still have wind limits on how that they run up against if you got the winds to be too fast. They wouldn't roll out under those conditions.
Got it. All right. So do we want to remove the bookmark and talk about what happens after the crawler drops off? It's like dropping off a massive, however many million-pound kid at school. After it drops off the SLS, it doesn't go all the way back to the VAB, right? What happens after that?
No. So the first thing it will do immediately after it sets the mobile launcher down, it will stay there for a little bit, as they make absolutely sure alignment of the mobile launcher on the pedestals is correct. And then once they know that, the crawler will back down the overall pad, and it will go right outside the gate at the bottom of the pad ramp, and then it will sit there usually until just about the start, just before the start of countdown operations. And it will stay there in case they do need to go back and pick SLS up and bring it back to the vehicle assembly building. Weather right now, long-term tropical models look very favorable, at least to the opening of the window for SLS. So we're not expecting anything like that, but they do tend to leave it there in case they need to grab it very quickly and bring it back to the VAB for protection from a storm. But then right before the countdown begins, they will move it back to the point in the crawlerway where the crawlerway splits to go to either pad A or pad B. And that is far enough away that should SLS suffer a catastrophic failure on the launch pad or shortly after liftoff, the odds of the crawler getting damaged by falling debris or anything like that are significantly reduced at that distance. And that's the primary reason why they move it back, is to protect it, because there are only two of them in the world, and the one that's taking SLS out to the launch pad right now is the only one of the two that was modified to carry an SLS and its mobile launcher out to the launch pad and back. So they really don't want to take any chances with these vehicles, so they move them to protect them.
Makes sense. I mean, there's only two. Ever.
Right. Ever. Yes, exactly.
Cool. Well, we are waiting for it to make the turn. That is going to be the next visual thing we see as it progresses towards 39B, right? It's going to sort of do it's going to turn camera right. It's actually going to turn left.
Yeah, so
Actually, kind of looks like it's straightened out already. So
it kind of does,
pretty,
yeah. Yeah, there's a little, so like it comes out of high bay 3, the one with the partially open doors, and then it has to turn a little bit to merge with the single crawler way that goes directly into high bay 1, which is the one with the closed doors there. But then that single path then takes a little hook to camera right. In reality, it's to the left. Takes a slight little hook to the right, and then it goes straight on to the split in the crawlerway, where it will then turn basically 90 degrees to head out toward pad B.
All right. Well, let's see. What else do we have here? Let's do some more questions. How about?
Sounds good to me.
Why doesn't SLS have a name? Why is SLS S's name? This is a question from Alan. He wants us to ask it at a press conference, but I think we have a lot of questions that we want to ask at a press conference. So how about we just spitball right now? Why is SLS's name just Space Launch System? Why not call it, like, I don't know, Super Tube? I have no idea.
Yeah, it was supposed to get a name. The original envisioning for how this is going to work is that it was going to basically be like the space shuttle, right? Where that was not the program's actual name, even though it was called the space shuttle program. The actual vehicle was the
transportation system.
Exactly, the space transportation system, which is where STS, before the numbering designations, come from for the missions. So and then shuttle got the colloquial name, the space shuttle, right? And SLS was in the beginning supposed to get that, and then they just never did. So now it's SLS.
All right. Well,
I wish there was a more engaging answer, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I like the first one that comes to mind, I guess, to me that's not stupid. Is like Jupiter. I mean, we had the Saturn series in college, and it's orange, right? It's kind of orange
and it's
orange,
white. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm into it.
Yeah.
But
I think we can all just agree that, like, thank God that horrific PR thing of painting it to look like Apollo was just a PR stunt years ago, because orange is better.
I'm a fan of orange. I'm also a fan of not just needlessly lugging a bunch of, like, several hundred pounds of paint up to the past the Kármán line.
Yeah, which is why that was always nothing more than a PR thing.
Eagle Flight, thank you so much for the support. They're complaining about NASA's live feed. I'm only watching ours right now. I'm not sure what's going on there. Sorry. Stephen Muir, maybe related to Stephen Marr. I'm kidding. Thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Let's see. James Juries says Delta V. Thank you for the support. Anthony, thank you for the support. Asking about FTS and what its expiration date would be. This is a 79-minute old super chat though, so I think Anthony probably got his answer while we were talking to Philip about that.
12.
Go ahead. Chris is doing math.
29, 30, 31, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. It expires one day after the end of their window. So they've got the whole window. Yep.
All right.
Sorry,
so
I was literally counting. Thank you.
Chris mathing
I
on
have the
air.
count. Yeah. I've
That was
got
a flex.
let me see if I can put that graphic back up of the calendar. Let's see. Or I could try to. It's just again, but
thank you, Anthony, for the support there. It looks like it's really moving now.
yeah. Yeah, but they do as we were talking about before. They actually do have the 6, although it's a pretty short launch window. But you know, if I'm sure that they would be willing to take it if it came to that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Moldy Space, thanks for the support. Oh, and there we go. There's the calendar there for you.
Right.
Moldy
So.
Space. Oh no, go ahead, please, Philip.
I was just gonna say that so this math here we're talking about. So it's they extended this duration for the flight termination system to 25 days. So the test was completed on the 12th, which is last Friday, and so you just go down the line here. So you get to 20. 3 weeks from then is the 2nd, and then you go. That's 21 days, and then you've got 3, 4, 5, 6. You got 4 more days. That gets you to 25 days, and so that gives them, again. We've been trying to confirm this, but they're kind of busy right now, getting ready for launch. But
makes sense.
The way I look at it, I think that gives them the opportunity to do that. Now, one of the other reasons that I kind of did a Franken calendar on this is I wanted to point out that those 3 red days there, August 30th, August 31st, and September 1st, they cannot launch because of a constraint on Orion, that Orion would be in eclipse for more than 90 minutes. And so we were talking about moving up couldn't they try on the 27th or the 28th maybe if they're going out so early? It might have been nice to do that. But the one thing about starting your launch attempts on the 29th, and I won't use the S word, but if they can't go on the 29th, they have to wait until the 2nd to try again. And so the only issue there that we're thinking about is, they could have, it's fairly unlikely that the weather is going to be so bad that they wouldn't even consider fueling the vehicle. But if something came up before they tank, then they do have, under those limited circumstances, the ability to come back 24 hours later. So, and the issue there with starting on the 29th is that they wouldn't be able to do that. So the 29th is kind of there's a little bit of a there's a little bit of a deadline there in effect, just because then they'll have to wait until the 2nd to try again. Now, having said that, once they tank the vehicle, I think that displays some level of confidence, which is they expect to be able to be ready to go on the 29th. Once they fuel the vehicle, they don't have enough cryogenics to turn it back around in 24 hours, and so the 2nd would end up kind of being where they'd be coming back if for any reason that they had to come back. So, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out. So, fingers
Excellent.
crossed that everything lines up on the 29th.
Yeah, fingers crossed is right. I don't know. I got a good feeling. I got to knock on wood or whatever's adjacent to you that's knockable. But yeah, I got a good feeling. Moldy Space says, another question for the Thomas fan club: is SLS an Ares-1 derived vehicle with the SRBs?
Oh my God! What was the question again? What was the question again? Did they specify which one? What was the question, Jack?
Is SLS an Ares 1X derived vehicle
1X.
with
Oh,
with the
No.
SRBs?
Okay,
Not 1X.
no. Oh man, so close on that though. It is an Ares derived vehicle, but not the Ares 1. It is technically derived from the Ares 5. Basically the constellation program would have had the Ares 1 as the crew launch vehicle and the Ares 5 as the cargo launch vehicle, but there was a variant of the Ares 5 because it was supposed to have 5 RS-25 engines. But there was also a 4-engine variant that was like a dual cargo crew vehicle. And those two are what sort of merged together to become SLS. So not Ares 1, but some rockets of the Ares program, yes, is exactly what this is derived from. I wouldn't even say derived from, is with just a different name.
I love that Moldy Space just wanted to get a Thomas fan club mention and an Ares 1X mention because it's Thomas's favorite rocket on the stream, and yet we have provided them with, and everybody with, a detailed, insightful answer. So that is officially this stream's energy.
It's one of our specialties,
you can- I
especially
mean,
when you've got Philip and I together
You
on
could
an
say,
SLS stream.
like, I would almost kind of go ahead and disagree with you there, Chris, in a way,
Go
because
for it.
these boosters are the Ares 1, the crew launch vehicle design. So these boosters were designed in the late aughts, before cancellation, and they did not change. They didn't change the what do you call it, the ballistics of the booster. These are
Yeah.
basically as designed, and so it is a kind of it's a hybrid. It's derived from shuttle and derived from Ares, which was derived from shuttle. But yeah, this is the 5-segment booster that they intended to use for for Ares 1. And of
And I
course
get
you can get into all that fun stuff with Constellation. But yeah.
Exactly. No, and I think the only note that I would add to that is, yeah, exactly, because all of the rockets of in the Ares series were sort of designed to use the 5-segment solid rocket booster design. The 4 and 5 in the rocket category would have used the dual twin solid rocket motors that SLS uses, whereas Ares 1X would have used a single
Well, yeah, I mean,
solid.
I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I mean, if you'll recall,
we're in the rabbit hole. Go ahead.
Yeah,
We are,
but I mean,
we
if
are
you
way far
recall,
down.
like,
Let's do it. Let's do it.
they switched engines to the RS-68 at one point.
Oh yeah.
To it, and they switched tankage. So this core stage retains the 8.4 meter diameter, whereas they were going to go up to a 10 meter diameter core stage for the Ares 5. So and if I recall correctly, they were actually going to go to a 5.5 segment booster for Ares 5 as well. So
the weird half segment.
yeah.
Yes.
So
yeah, there was
it had
an
gotten
evolution
pretty
design for
funky.
that,
It had gotten pretty funky by the time they decided to pull the plug. So yeah, I mean, with the RS-68, they were gonna, they were talking about doing a regeneratively cooled nozzle, because the ablative version that they're flying now, we were going to have base
Man.
heating issues, and
like that's where all of the problems of trying to human rate the RS-68s came into play, of just the hydrogen rich and the dump that they have to do as part of their ignition sequence. Like that's where like Delta IV sort of got eliminated as a possible rocket that could launch Orion, because there was just no way to human rate that with the amount of hydrogen that gets released at the engine start sequence with the RS-68s.
I'm just so pleased with how that question and that was a yay. That went well.
I saw somebody say it's not a rabbit hole, it's a crater now.
Oh man. Let's see. Apocalypse Cow, thank you for the support. They say the plumbing on the tower is amazing. Is it more or less than previous rollouts? It looks the same to me, right? The tower hasn't undergone a whole bunch of modifications and had stuff added to it, right?
No, not at all. This would be the same plumbing that was there. Lighting angles, I will say, having done this job for many, many years now, different lighting conditions just draw your eye to different places, and
Yeah, that makes sense.
you absolutely can swear that something has not been there. I have had many conversations of like what my memory was, and then we go look at the photos and it's all there. But that's not to say they don't add things periodically, but between the dress rehearsal campaign rollouts and this one, there was no significant work to the ML. No.
It's really cooking down the crawlerway now. I mean, and
Yeah.
this is such a cool shot to
Yeah.
to sort of wrap your head around the scale of thing. Look at the police car on the right. Look right above it. There's a guy wearing an orange top. He's just becoming obscured right now. But there's people walking next
Yep.
to the crawler, and you can see how teeny
Oh,
tiny they are.
walking on the crawler.
Yeah, there's people on. Yeah, you can see them on the crawler. You can
and
see
on the
like,
ML. Yeah.
compared to all of these vehicles, like the whole entire like this. Just take a moment, viewer, and please appreciate the amount of cool that you are viewing right now. This is an insane thing. Rocket getting rolled out to the launch site, and we have front row seats, and that's really super cool. So
Yeah.
I don't know, just one of those moments where I'm struck by the enormity of the thing.
And it's one of those moments too, right? Like 0.8, 0.9 miles per hour, like 1.4 kilometers per hour does not in any way seem fast, right? And like if you've ever tried to go if you've ever tried to go 1 mile an hour or 1 kilometer an hour in your car, right? You are literally crawling, hence, the name of the crawler transporters. But when you get something this big, that is when you really understand how quickly, relative to the size of this vehicle, that this thing is moving. And remember, too, it is carrying 15 million pounds on
Wow.
top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
You can
is
see the
which is
cab. I think that's the
6.8
cab right
million
there.
kilograms. Yeah, that's the cab that
Right.
drives it this direction. There's an exact cab on the caddy corner opposite side that drives when you need to drive it the opposite direction because you can't turn it around, so you just switch cabs.
It's funny how, scale just sort of warps your perception of things. At this level of zoom from the camera, it really looks like it's going so fast, right? And then you zoom all the way out and to more of a human field of view, and it's like, okay, yeah, no, it's not going that fast at all. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah, especially
considering
since the guy is just walking at a leisurely pace up to it and working on it as it rolls. Look at that.
Right. But yeah,
You don't need
that's
to
what they do. I mean, they generally have people there keeping an eye on the equipment.
Yep. Because they do monitor temperatures, they monitor, grease, they monitor everything to make sure that this is rolling smoothly. And we do see them, they do sometimes stop periodically to assess the condition of the crawler. But oh my gosh, while we're on this site real quick, no, we're gonna scroll up, so I'll wait for that to come back. I'll wait until we come back down to the base.
Chris, you have spent too much time on the internet.
Oh,
Scroll
okay,
up.
scroll up.
No, go
scroll
ahead.
down. Yes, I have. Thank you. So if you look, you see these big, gigantic white pipes that come up from the base and then go inwards. Those are the sound suppression water pipes. So
Whoa.
how all of that water gets from the tower up to the Rainbirds and onto the deck of the mobile launcher and into that flame trench to deaden the sound of the main engines and the solid rocket boosters, that's them right there. So when this thing gets set down on the pedestals, some of them are pedestals that carry the water for the sound suppression up into the mobile launch platform for liftoff. And
That's
those
a
all had
big
side paneling on the shuttle, and you couldn't see them, but you can see them on the SLS, and I wanted to point those out because it's amazing. And they're
yeah,
huge.
those are big diameter pipes. I mean, that gives you a sense of like a lot of water is used in the Rainbirds. You can you can see the Rainbirds in this shot as well. They're kind of like camouflaged, but they're there. Like if you look at the deck, you can see it looks like bam.
You can
Thank you.
center of the frame on the top of the deck there. Yeah,
Thank you,
that's
Steven.
one of them right there. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. That's one of them.
Yeah, exactly. And that water tower holds just under 500,000 gallons of water, and it will dump all of that water out through the sound suppression system. That's one of the Rainbirds, as we were just talking about. It will empty it in less than half a minute flat.
Wow, that's
That is the
ridiculous.
flow of water onto that pad in the seconds leading up to and after liftoff.
And
to
and that
deaden the acoustics.
also sort of makes sense why we get asked so often on Starship streams, like, is there going to ever be water deluge? It's like, yeah, this rocket uses a lot of water deluge. Many rockets use a significant amount of water at launch compared to
Yep.
Starship, which does not yet.
And the beauty of it too, really, is that the water towers themselves stand, just shy of 89 meters tall. And literally the way they works is there are pumps to pump all that water up into the tower, but the way it works at liftoff is open the valve and let gravity do it. So you never have a pump failure of your sound suppression system.
But Chris, what about a valve failure? Dramatic music plays.
If the valve fails to open, the ground launch sequencer would catch it, and the rocket's onboard computers would catch that the valves had not opened, and the whole countdown would come to a screeching halt at about
Alright,
T minus 16 seconds. Yep.
Dramatic music
And-
ceases. All right.
Yeah.
The water, right? And I mean, there just like with shuttle. Well, this is maybe a little bit more complicated, but there's a series of valves that get opened in sequence, and there are I think 3 or 4 phases of the water release. So the initial water release is into the flame hole under the core state engines as those start, and then then the rainbirds start to come on at kind of a half flow, and then coincident with the boosters, just like with shuttle, when the boosters are started, then that's when they want to just flood the deck of the mobile launcher with water.
Got it. How many gigawatts is this, tractor beam that's pulling the SLS up the crawlerway here?
Well, that depends on which enterprise it is, Jack.
I'm sorry, I had to make this it kind of looks like the spotlight is pulling the SLS down the crawlerway like a tractor beam from Star Trek. I'm sorry, I had to do it. At least you laughed. Thank you for laughing, Chris. You're very kind.
Yeah, no, I found hey, as someone who just has Star Trek on in the background most days, I appreciated that. Yes.
You and me both, buddy. Although stupid Netflix, they took it off. Chris Stevens, thank you for the support. We have so many super old super chats. I just want to get through a bunch of these. And thank people for their support, but also I don't want to take a lot of time away from you guys doing your thing, because you have so much knowledge to share, and I just want to sit here and listen. But Rough Riders, thank you for the support. They're hoping the first launch attempt will go off, and they're proud to say it'll be their first rocket launch. Awesome. Hope you enjoy the show, Rough Riders. Which reminds me, we have a viewer question about where to watch from that we should get to here in a second. Bruce, thank you for the support. James, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. Thomas, thank you for the support. Thomas Conroy, thank you for the support. They say, does test flight have to work? And how bad for the program if it doesn't? Let's just say it's going to work. Guardian, thank you for the support. They say, would the space shuttle program have been able to continue, or was it no longer needed after the completion of the space station? I think it was more of a risk versus reward kind of thing there, but we don't have to get into a long philosophical conversation about all that.
It was funding.
Funding, okay, thank you. Tekadan, thank you for the support. They say they're already building the next SLS. We talked about that a little bit earlier. They are building the next couple. Dr. Dokecom, thank you for the support. They became a Capcom member. You get Discord access at Capcom and above, so jump into our Discord and say hey. And thank you for the support there. Dr. Doke, Brian, just coming through right now as I'm talking, distracting me with a $50 super chat. Thank you so much, Brian. That is a lot of support, and we super duper appreciate it. They're excited for the launch. Would we choose a view from the KSC Visitor Center or a 4th-story balcony right at the start of the NASA Causeway Bridge in Titusville? Chris, which of these two options would you choose? KSC Visitor Center on the 4th-story balcony right at the start of the Causeway?
Oh, easy. I would choose 4th-story balcony at the start of the Causeway. I think I know exactly the hotel you are talking about. For this exact reason. You will see SLS on its launch pad and have an unobstructed view of the liftoff from that balcony. If you are at the visitor center at the Kennedy Space Center, you won't see it for the first 10 to 15 seconds of flight. There's no direct line of sight to the launch pad from the visitor center at the Kennedy Space Center. So unless you have the Feel the Heat tickets where you're at the Saturn V Center 3 miles from the pad, I mean, that's the obvious one, but they're expensive, and I'm pretty sure they sold out in
They're sold out.
record time.
Although
But
I
yeah,
will
if you're
say, if you're trying to figure out where to go and
Yeah.
you like have your heart set on Feel the Heat tickets, when I went there for Falcon Heavy, I sold my Feel the Heat tickets that I had as a backup. So there you might catch somebody online or what have you if you're super looking out that has like decided to watch it a different way or can no longer make it and is selling their ticket. But good luck either way if that's what your heart is set on. But isn't the side note, isn't the Feel the Heat spot, the Saturn V Center, like closer than the press site actually is?
Is it to pad? I don't think so. Hang on. Let me check. Yeah.
I Google mapped it the other day and it's like a 1/10 of a mile closer or something like that. It's insane.
Is it something like that? Yeah, I mean, so like 6 of 1 in that regard, but yeah, I mean, maybe technically.
But
pad
either
B.
way, let me get through a whole bunch more of these, and we'll talk more about where to watch from because I'm sure a lot of people here are going to be at the launch in person and want to know the answer to that. Aravale, thank you for the support. They say, will the Orion capsule get a name?
Good question. So the first 2 Orions are not slated to be reused. The reuse starts with the Orion for Artemis-3. No one has said anything in any interview I've ever done with them about Orions getting individual names. They might get call signs. I don't know if they'd get names.
Call signs would be cool.
Yeah.
James Jerry's, thanks for the support. They are asking if we're going to be covering ABL's first launch attempt on the 29th. I'm not sure. We'll have to talk to the live stream controllers like Dawson, Michael, and you about what our plan is there. But safe to say, it's going to be all hands on deck with Artemis-1. Mario, thank you for the support, becoming a Padrat member. Blake Alexander, thank you for the clarification. I talked to you in chat about this. Grayson Holt, thank you for the support. They say, thanks for the awesome coverage. Can we talk about the Orion capsule versus something like Starliner or Dragon? Since we were just looking at that, that's kind of timely, right? Orion is bigger, right? And
Orion is the biggest, yeah. If we're talking about them in comparison to any of the capsules that have come before, Apollo, Dragon, and Starliner, yeah, Orion is the biggest of the 3. It is designed like Starliner and Dragon, though, to carry 4 people, but it's designed to carry them for much longer periods of time. Right, because Starliner and Dragon are meant to be ferry craft where the crew are in them for roughly 24 hours before they disembark on the International Space Station, where Orion has to keep them safe for potentially 3 weeks at a time for what we're talking about with the Artemis 2 free flight mission there. And Orion also has to be able to keep the crew safe for up to 6 days in a completely depressurized cabin, like with the suits that the crew will wear for launch and entry and emergencies during the mission. So it is bigger and it is more durable in that regard. So for example, the Crew Dragons have 9.3 square meters of pressurized habitable volume, whereas the Orion has 20 cubic meters of pressurized volume within it. So you can kind of get a sense of that difference in there. One thing they have to be able to take with them on the Orion vehicles are treadmills, exercise equipment, and everything, whereas the Dragons and the Starliners don't have to have that because it's a 1-day ferry trip to and from the station. So yeah, Orion has to be a far more versatile and capable vehicle than the current iteration of the Crew Dragons and Starliners are.
Yeah, and it's just because they're all built for different purposes, like you're saying. Some are, like basically a taxi. It's like a space Uber or Lyft or what
like
have
a space Uber, yes, exactly.
versus something that you're going to be living in for an extended period of time. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, breaking. This is really not that exciting. Breaking news: we have a poll in chat. If you, what is your favorite logo? Is it the worm or is it the meatball? We've got the worm on the SRBs. We've got the meatball on the upper stage. You can see them both in this shot. Crispy NASA Spaceflight Actual had to put that in. I implore you, do not vote wormball. Do not vote wormball.
Is wormball an option? Wait.
Yeah, the options are worm, meatball, and wormball For the love of
hasn't
everything
updated for me
spacey,
yet.
do not vote Wormball. It is the most cursed of all. But this reminds me, I wanted to ask Philip. I don't think I know what your preference is. If I may ask you a non-technical question, worm or meatball? Don't say wormball.
Worm.
Worm.
I grew up with shuttle.
Nice.
Oh
Team
my god,
Worm.
are we all Team Worm on this stream?
This is a Team Worm
Maybe.
podcast or
Yes,
live stream.
yes.
I mean,
I'm happy
I
with
like
that.
the orbiters. I like the orbiters with the worms on them. Before they put the meatballs on them.
Yep. Yeah,
Right.
they looked amazing. The whole like the NASA style guide from that era is just that's like one of those books that I'm like, if I had coffee table books, I should get that book, but I'm not that fancy. All right, now that we've settled the debate, Worm versus Meat. By the way, Worm is winning in the polls. I'm just saying. And Wormball has beaten Meatball, which is hilarious. But yeah, let's move on with some more awesome questions here. Oh, Jerwa, thank you for the support. Robbie, thank you for the support as well. Robbie's asking about the RS-25s after launch, if they'll be recovered and rehabbed, or if we're just chucking them into the ocean. I know a lot of people feel
even
grumpy
worse.
about that, but yeah, I mean, they're getting to do another mission. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they will go out in an absolute blaze of glory doing something that they were never designed to do, which is launch something like this to the moon, and get it out of the Earth's dense lower atmosphere. But no, the solid rocket boosters and the RS-25 engines will not be recovered from SLS. The boosters will just be allowed to impact the ocean at terminal velocity. They will shatter apart and sink to the bottom of the ocean. This actually happened accidentally on STS-4, so they will shatter when they hit the water. And the RS-25s are attached to the core stage, and very much like the space shuttle's external fuel tank, the SLS core stage will be left purposefully suborbital, with a perigee of about 60 kilometers in the atmosphere. So it will re-enter over the Pacific Ocean near Hawaii, and portions of the RS-25s, most likely like the power heads and stuff that are really built to take some of the really intense temperatures, because they actually experience hotter temperatures during liftoff than they would during reentry. But their cooling systems are not active during reentry, so some parts of them will survive atmospheric reentry, but they will impact the Pacific Ocean harmlessly, but no recovery. The only part of this rocket that will be recovered is the Orion capsule.
So it goes.
With the RS-25s. I mean, I think a good way of thinking of it is the core stage is a sustainer stage, and so it isn't like the first stage of a Falcon 9. It's more like in terms of returning to Earth, it's more like the second stage of a Falcon 9. It doesn't necessarily return from orbital altitude, but it returns to Earth from orbital velocity. So it's decelerating from 8 kilometers a second to 0. Of course, it doesn't make it that far, but
it's actually
it won't look anything like the engines won't look anything like engines if we find anything off the coast of Hawaii.
Yeah. And I think, Philip, what you were saying there, like a good way to think about this is like the core stage of SLS is like the core stage of the CZ-5B from China. The difference is NASA will purposely leave the core stage on a suborbital trajectory where they know the impact point in the Pacific, whereas China inserts that entire stage into orbit and then just lets it fall where it will, because portions of the core stage will survive atmospheric reentry, and that's why they purposefully leave it suborbital on a very well-known and understood trajectory to come in over the Pacific near Hawaii. Yeah,
right, and in fact that is part of the calculations that they have to do for launch, is to make sure that when the core stage re-enters and burns up, that because it isn't even like the boosters. So the boosters go, when the boosters burn out, they'll split. We're looking at the press kit, but like the boosters will impact the water less than 5.5 minutes after liftoff. The core stage will not come down intact, and that debris field is not gigantic, but it's a large debris field, and it will come down in the Pacific in mostly little tiny pieces, and not until almost 2 hours after liftoff is when that hardware will impact the water all the way around the world in the Pacific. So it's unfortunately we have the two shuttle accidents to sort of draw in terms of reentries, and so for anybody that's looked at some of the hardware that was recovered from the Challenger and the Columbia accidents, you can see the difference between having what I would call kind of a first stage splashdown versus a re-entering from orbital velocity. And so if you look at the main engine debris from Challenger, it still looks like a space shuttle main engine. If you look at the debris from Columbia, like you'll see the basic elements. Like you'll see not even the power heads. What you'll see is the I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's the hot gas manifold, which is basically just the bare structure. And I remember looking at a picture of one of the some of the Columbia debris, and this takes the force and the force of the main engines when they're firing. It wasn't even an intact hot gas manifold. It was like half of one. So it's like, and that's taking the engine completely apart. All of the ducting, all of the turbo pumps are ripped out. All of the internal, the combustion chambers ripped out. All the injectors are torn apart. Obviously the nozzles ripped off. So it's not the kind of thing that is easy to that's easy to recover. And so you need something like a space shuttle orbiter or what they're doing with Starship to recover something that big coming back from orbital velocity.
I don't even know how to respond to that wealth of knowledge. All right, well, that is what's going to happen to the RS-25s, Robbie. We hope you enjoyed your answer because it was super in-depth. And don't be sad that they're going to be ending up in the ocean shattered. They'll get to do their job one more time. All right, well, we had that question I said I wanted to hit. Where would be the best place to watch the launch in Titusville without going into Kennedy Space Center? Oh my God, it's from Christian, and I just accidentally got rid of the question in the queue. But that was the question.
Okay. Best places to watch without being on Kennedy Space Center property. That's the question.
Yeah, I know you've said Titusville. I think some people are looking for like specific locations, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll start by just saying Titusville and explaining why. 8:33 in the morning. Playa Linda technically opens at sunrise or 6 a.m. There is no way I can see no way that Playa Linda Beach is open. It is literally 1 mile from the launch pad. There's no way Playa Linda will be open for this from a security standpoint. So unfortunately, with that out, that leaves Titusville. And the reason I say that is because if you want the unobstructed view of the rocket, if you want to be able to see it right at liftoff, you want to be able to see the plume coming out the back of the flame trench and the pad and everything and the initial climb off the pad before she rolls onto course, that's going to be Titusville. You're going to want to be along the river. Some places include Kennedy Point Park, Rotary Riverfront Park, William J. Manzano Memorial Park, Spaceview Park, Sandpoint Park, the Valicenti Pavilion, the Titusville Marina. The Max Brewer Causeway, check to see if law enforcement will be allowing you to stand on the pedestrian crossings on that bridge during liftoff. But the road will likely close very, very shortly after that for safety considerations going into the Cape. Those are going to be honestly your best options. Manatee Hammock Campground is another potential one.
Wait,
Down
did you just
there,
say manatee hammock?
yes.
I don't know if two more adorable words have been paired ever.
Uh,
Sorry,
yes.
go on.
No, all good. Here's the unfortunate part when you get down to Port Canaveral, in the Cape Canaveral area and the Cocoa area, you cannot see the launch pad from there. The port blocks your view of the pad, so you won't see it until it's up and rolling and probably through the roll program and heading out downrange. Probably a good 15 seconds after liftoff is when you'll see it if you're down there, and that's just simply because it's so far north at that point. The pad is 14 miles north of you. The port and the contour of the Cape and all the buildings of the Cape just block it from your view. So, I mean, definitely don't forego the day at the beach with the family or the morning at the beach with the family, but just know if you are down in Port Canaveral, Cape Canaveral, and Cocoa Beach, you're not going to see this on the pad. And it's going to be about 15 seconds before it'll become visible to you. So for that reason, I would say if you want to see it, go to Titusville. You're going to be closer than you are at Cape and Port Canaveral. In this case, because Pad B is the northernmost of the launch facilities, and the Cape is just on the south side. So that's what I would say for viewing.
When how far into launch does it start the roll program?
7 seconds, according to the pre-flight predictions.
So it
This
would already
thing
be
books
rolling
it,
at 15 seconds in.
It would be done rolling at 15
Oh
seconds
wow,
in.
okay.
Yeah, it will roll at pretty much the same roll rate that the shuttles rolled, and they could execute a 90-degree roll in 5 seconds flat coming off the pad. So yeah, it'll roll fairly quickly onto course from there. Now the other main thing to consider is launches at 8:33 in the morning. It's not a bad idea to stake out your spot overnight. The figures that I have seen are anywhere from 750,000 to 1 million people are expected in the Titusville, Port Canaveral area for the liftoff of SLS. So wherever you want to watch, really do plan to get there early. I mean, make a night of it. Seriously, make a night of it.
It's just
It's
submit
gonna
to the
fill up
fact
bigger
that
than you
you're
think.
submit to the fact that you're going to be waiting around for a while. The earlier you can stand, the better. Bring snacks, bring drinks, drink lots of water. It's Florida, it's going to be hot. Drink lots of water, drink even more water. If you're thirsty, it's too late. And bring some shade or umbrella or something if you can. But it's just make a whole thing. I mean, going back, I mentioned I was at the Cape for Falcon Heavy a little while ago. I mean, I basically stayed up all night that night waiting at the end of Max Brewer Bridge to get to Playa Linda because for Falcon Heavy, Playa Linda was open.
Yep.
And it was just like, I'm not going to sleep tonight, but I'm going to have a good spot. So
Exactly. And wherever you end up going, bring your phone, bring your device so you can watch us because we will be live. It's either going to be like technically still Sunday night or like right
we'll
at
have to-
midnight. But we will be live throughout all of fueling and all of that. So wherever you end up watching it, if you are coming in person, remember to bring your device and keep us on because we'll be giving you updates just like we normally would throughout all of this.
it'll be like the
launch day.
2022 version of listening to the radio to figure out what's going on. And if you can't watch in person, of course, the best place to watch will be on our channel. Speaking of the best of things, you know what else you could do while watching our stream on launch day? You could be wearing our merch if you want to. If you want to go full ham, or go whole hog. I guess whole hog is the actual expression. But yeah, we've got the Road to Artemis merch. Don't forget if you want to be wearing it on launch day. I think it might not be too late to order it now. I'm not making any promises here. Either way, if you want some merch to celebrate Artemis, we have it. It's a super cool design and it's on all kinds of things. So check it out if you like. Also, don't forget the metal print. Super love that shot of the rocket on the pad. So yeah, and rest assured, we're gonna have some super cool content from the launch itself. But if you can't wait, we got all kinds of stuff. And hey, there's the Rollin' and Hayton shirt that exists. So yeah,
See me
we're watching a rollout. Maybe you're into that. I still need to get an SLS pillow. I'm not joking. I need actual pillows for my couch, and I have no I'm not gonna go buy actual pillows from a pillow store. So yeah. Anyways, that's the merch store. We super appreciate all the support, and yeah, check out the new Road to Artemis design that we've got. I mean, the rocket is now sort of in. They turned off the lights. Why'd they turn off the lights?
I don't think they have them on for very long, and they're you can see some of the lights, just some of the car lights. They're gonna get the people that are driving the crawler probably don't want to get overwhelmed with the floodlights on them. So maybe they'll turn them on again after they get past there. But I know I remember for the March rollout they kind of selectively used those. So it might be like this basically till they get to the pad, and actually probably up on the pad surface. It's just going to depend on how long it takes them to get out there. But they do this on purpose because this is as Chris was saying way back when, this is the best time of the day for weather in the summertime, the most placid time of the day for weather, except for that one thunderstorm that we saw. But yeah, I think at this point, really, it was only late. It was even less than an hour late, and so this is good because again, this is going to give them some extra time to get to be ready to go on the 29th, and so that will that's just sort of extra insurance that they're going to be ready to go on the 29th, and they do have some they have a 2-hour launch window on August 29th from 8:33 to 10:33 a.m. local Eastern Daylight Time. So that's 4 hours behind UTC. But they might not go right at the exact opening of the window, but they got 2 hours, and so it's they might need kind of like with STS1 and maybe I think even STS2, they took maybe an extra 10 minutes or so to make sure that they were all ready, everybody was ready to go. But as we've been talking about, we're all hoping to see it fly on August 29th.
Yeah, I mean, I get people thinking or wondering about delays or the S words or certain things like that. But we're not thinking about those thoughts. We're thinking it's going to be all good on the first attempt. It honestly wouldn't surprise me. I get it because it's a new rocket and all of that, but like Chris says, heritage hardware. Speaking of heritage hardware, we have Mr. Vipitz asking how many flights did the RS-25s make before their final one later this month? And I don't know if you guys have this memorized or not, but I do have a graphic in front of me that I can answer this question with. But I'm sort of curious what Chris knows off the top of his head, or what you know off the top of your head, Philip.
Oh gosh, off the top of my head, go Philip.
Oh, I have to look it up. I mean, there are so many engines in the life of the program. I mean, the only thing I know for sure is I know the numbers because we've been dealing with them for. Yeah, I saw those at in New Orleans before they went in the core stage. So
what is the proper way to refer to one of these? I see engine 2056, 2045, 2058, and 2060. Is that appropriate, or would you say 2058, or would you say just
I usually
58?
say like 2045, 2056, 2058, 2060.
Okay.
I think if memory serves, the most flown engine has 12, and the least flown has
This is
3,
amazing.
and then 4 and
Nice.
6 stick in my head for the
Yes,
others.
you're insane, Chris. I cannot. You're a madman.
Okay,
I can
can't
verify
go any further than that, but
nobody
that's
in
it.
our back channel has helped him at all. So engine 2045 has 12 flights on it, including John Glenn's flight and the final shuttle mission. Engine 2060 has 3 flights on it, which is the least. The 45 is the most. 2060 includes the final shuttle mission. It only had 3 flights again. Engine 2058 had 6 flights, and all 6 missions to the space station. And Engine 2056 had 4 flights, including a Hubble servicing mission. So that is the 4 RS-20, or those are the 4 RS-25s, sort of at a glance, that are on this vehicle. Do you think? Here's a stupid Jack question. Do you think they deliberately chose like engines with this spread in order, an engine that primarily was used for the space station, an engine that include, that was on the final mission, an engine that included a Hubble is that something
not.
that they considered, or they just used the 4 best candidates for the job?
It might not even have been best candidates for the job. It might honestly have just been where they all were in their flow, because like some at the end of the shuttle program like have done some incremental testing on the stands at Stennis and will now go into the flight flow for Artemis and everything like that. It might honestly have just been they were the first 4 on the docket, so they got chosen.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of those things. I think these are engines like Chris is saying, the engines are going through, they have you have the sort of the core parts of the engines, which is the power head, which is the main combustion chamber, and those types of things. But all of the other parts on them have time and cycle maintenance requirements on them.
Yeah.
And I think that these engines lined up. They knew that these engines were going to be the ones that were going to fly the first SLS launch, and so I think these were probably picked. They have 16 flight engines, and they actually had the parts for the last 2, so they had 14 engines that were sort of in the rotation at the end of STS 135, and then they had engine 2062 was built, I think, and was going to be built, and then 2063 was actually completely built at Stennis, from in the individual parts. And in fact, I think those two engines actually had to get acceptance tested during the SLS program, and I believe those are assigned to Artemis-2. But yeah, it's I think they're looking at, if you look at engine 2056. So now I'm cheating off the press kit here, but I mean the last flight, that engine hasn't flown since STS 21, which is, or 120. I'm sorry, STS 121, which is quite a while ago, 2006. So that engine probably went through a maintenance cycle, and is now basically flight ready again. So I do know that they did pick these engines. The first 2. Even though they're not going to do a green run on the second core stage, there was under the original plan, they were going to do that for the first one and the second one, and so they knew that these 2, or they assumed for these 2 core stages that these engines would at least be certified.
We're getting the lights back, maybe. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. But they knew that these engines were going to have to be fired more than once, and you would want them to be able to be started multiple times. I mean, again, we talked about we're using S-word euphemisms and all of this stuff, but in terms of actually being prepared for this, they wanted these engines to be able to handle maybe a couple of aborted green run tests, and we had one at Stennis, and they want them to at least be ready to to have the life and the time and cycle on the parts, so that if you did have if you had a shutdown on the pad, they could turn these engines around without having to remove and replace one of them, for example. So these engines have a little bit more sort of usage life for them, because they knew that they were gonna be used a little bit more on these first 2 core stage units.
Got it. That makes sense. All right. Well, I mean, the vehicle is just going to keep getting further and further away from us at this point. It looks like they might be putting those lights back on, but I remain skeptical. Either way, I think at this point, we are being told to pack up. So that will be it for the broadcast. But really quick, I do want to thank a lot of the people that were doing super chats. I kind of got into it there with the technical back and forth, and I just want to make sure we acknowledge some of these. James Juries, thank you. Spencer Ray, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Chocolad, thank you for supporting us there with the super chats. Tom the Toad, thank you for the coffee fund. D Bash, thank you for the support. Chris Mugalia, thanks for becoming a Pad Rat. Musical Wolves, thank you. James Juries again. Biblio, thank you for becoming a Pad Rat member. Again, thanks to all the members too. Definitely can't even talk. I cannot over whatever. Our members are really important to us. I can't brain. Space Shuttle Discovery, thanks for the support. James Juries again. Will Robertson, thank you. Bob Dusterberg, thank you so much. Raker, thanks for the support. James Beerton, Ben Weiss, World of Lapis, Andrew C. Thank you, everybody, for all the support. Parduke became a Red Team member. Colorado became a Pad Rat member. We hope you enjoy the perks. Let's see. James Juries with Wormball game. James Juries, what Wormball? No, it's awful. James Brierton, thank you. James Juries again. And Hal Snyder, thank you for the support. Thank you to everybody for watching with us tonight. If you picked up any merch, thank you for doing that. Thank you to all of our new members. And just wait. Artemis-1, the launch is coming, and we are going to do our very best at delivering that launch to everybody. Thank you so much for all the support. It's because of that support that we'll be able to pull out all the stops. There are no stops. But unfortunately, the stream does have a stop. But, the stops we're pulling out of our coverage. There's no stops in the coverage, but the stream is stopping. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Chris, for joining us.
My absolute pleasure.
And Julia out in the field, I'm not sure if she's having to pack up or is going to be on to say goodbye, but either way, thank you, Julia, so much. And also, we were joined by Philip. Thank you so much, Philip, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for putting up with my long-winded answers.
It's the exact right amount of wind. It's not long wind. It's the precisely correct amount of wind. Thank you. And also out in the field was Stephen Marr, not on comms, but out there shooting some photos and videos and whatnot for us. Thank you to him, and also Thomas Berghart. And I think that is it, ? Also, Michael Baylor as a live stream director for tonight. Thanks for putting up with me, Michael. Haha. But yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. Stay tuned for Artemis-1, the launch. It's like : the launch. It's going to be awesome.
We could say that finally. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. I remember when all of this was brand new and when Shuttle ended and there was nothing to follow it because SLS didn't exist and the commercial crew program wasn't around yet. So this is just yes.
Indeed. I couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I said indeed, which is your thing. So there you go.
Yes.
But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. I'm Jack Beyer with NASASpaceflight. With that, we will leave you until next time.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
Our UPA chamber pressure looks good. Doubling up. Roger, roll with Linus.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight outside SCE off. Say again, SCE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.